inside the 15. Thompson is going to launch it deep downfield, right in stride. Trey Palmer is gone. Touchdown, Nebraska.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Makes it 2nd and 7, facing pressure. Thorne floating, left lead, perfectly thrown. Touchdown, Michigan State. Thorne to Reed again.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Biggest third down in Bryce Young's career. You need 10. Play clock at 4. From the pocket. Launching downfield. Underthrown and intercepted. Keely Ringo has an escort down the sidelines. All the way to the end zone. And Georgia is going to conquer the Crimson Tide.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Huge play. Hartman throws to a wide open receiver for a touchdown. Nobody near A.T. Perry.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Rather with time. Underthrown and intercepted by the Wildcats. Julius Prince, the Iowa transfer.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And good afternoon on this Tuesday, the last day of February. March Madness has already begun. Some conference tournaments have begun. Saw a game yesterday that sent it into overtime. And so that's actually happened. March tomorrow, of course, starts the craziness, but it's already really begun even in late February. Good afternoon, Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina. Full throttle behind the scenes today with Jack McKenzie, who's still angst about whether Aaron Rodgers comes back to Green Bay for another year. Garrett Ross wearing his Montreal Expos cap today.
Got to keep it clean, man.
You know, that when there was the strike, was it 94 when they had the best record in baseball, then they shut it down?
They had Larry Walker was going to win. He was going to. He might have hit 400. I mean, it was nuts. Pedro, I think, was on the team then.
Martinez,
was dealing, yeah.
And then Emery Winter, who is there in the back with his ability to take whatever we say and actually make it make sense. All right, good afternoon. Last night, Big 12. How about West Virginia wins on the road against Iowa State? And they're now they've won 2 of their last 10, Iowa State. West Virginia, of course, trying to get in the tournament. Looks like they will get there. Meanwhile, Oklahoma State needs a win. And Baylor beat them despite a near collapse last night late in the game on some pressure. But they got it done. Dale Bonner again comes up. So Baylor guards, guys. Keontae George goes down Saturday. Bonner steps up big. Langston Love did too in the second half. Then last night, Love's going to be a guy who's a part of the starting rotation. He gets poked in the eye, misses the rest of the game, and there's Dale Bonner again.
Yeah, Dale Bonner, the last 2 games has really stepped up, and it'd been kind of a disappointment because I think the projection on him for this year was to be more of that Jake Lindsey, King McClure, A.J. Walton guy that they've always kind of had around. Somebody who is can kind of do everything you need, plays really good defense, plays hard, can be a leader, but he just kind of faded into the background. Now, part of that probably isn't his fault. Like, you know, Keontae George walks into the world and you're a guard, and Langston Love walks into your world and you're a guard, and you already have Cryer and Flagler. Well, you know, all of a sudden you're the 5th guard through no fault of your own for just being who God made you to be. And so he's had to, you know, work for different ways to contribute in the lineup. And offensively, it was always kind of a work in progress with him. But the last 2 games, he's come off the bench and really played key moments. At home against Texas on Saturday, not only did he make key buckets, he made key buckets that really rallied the crowd and killed Texas, you know, kind of any momentum they had in those moments. So made key free throws last night. Yeah, Dale Bonner, I don't know where they are, especially last night, without him coming off the bench.
Yeah, I mean they're probably not in the exact position they're in. They probably drop a game or two, and I mean thank goodness they have him. I mean that's the quality depth shining through, and they've certainly needed that. I mean you wonder how long Keontae George is going to be out, even though they called it a mild ankle sprain. You just never know with that type of deal. And then you mentioned Langston Love and his eye. I haven't seen any update on what exactly happened there, and you just never know. Like if you get a scratch in your eye and it gets infected, and it remains to be seen, if he would potentially miss any other time outside of last night. Hopefully, knock on wood, that both those guys are okay in the short term, because the short term is the NCAA tournament, or first the Big 12 tournament coming right around the corner. I mean, they've got one game to go, and then it's on to the postseason. And to have the type of guard depth that they have has really been, beneficial, and you saw that last night firsthand. So, great to see Dale Bonner stepping up. I mean, a guy who, I don't know if I talked about this on the podcast earlier today or it was maybe yesterday's show, but, guys can go sit on that bench and kind of react different ways to not playing as much as they would like to be playing. And Dale Bonner probably wasn't playing as much as he would like to be playing, or having carved out as much of a role as he would have liked. But, you keep a positive attitude, and you keep your head down, and you keep grinding. And when your name's called, you make the most of it. And I think that Dale Bonner's done that, and that's been huge for them these last two games.
It really has been. And by the way, good to have everybody already rolling on the chat room. I just tried to at least attach everybody's name that I saw early on that's been in the chat. So right now, Kansas 12-4, Texas 11-5. Texas has another day off. They're not day off, but they're practicing. They play at TCU, miles back, of course, for the Frogs. They're a physical team. Ought to be interesting there. Tonight, Texas Tech plays at KU. Obviously, if you're a Texas fan, you're rooting for Tech. How ironic is that? But you are, because you need Kansas to lose to get back into a tie if Texas can win. And then the game Saturday could set up the possibility of an all-out Big 12 championship in the regular season. Texas can still win tomorrow night, as can Kansas, and they can get a share if they win at home against the Jayhawks on Saturday. Tonight, Texas Tech at Kansas. And then, of course, last night, West Virginia and Baylor, as I mentioned, win on the road. Now, one of the things that I did see, that a lot of people were tweeting at us, hey, you guys got to get Dale Bonner on. The day after a game for athletes, it's an off day. But one of the things I said about the guards last night is this. Keontae goes down, Love and Bonner stepped up. Love goes down, Bonner steps up on both ends. They need to become much more efficient, though, in breaking pressure, because last night they were getting trapped in the corner. They were picking up their dribble when there was no pressure. It was Jalen Bridges had a ball, who's played great, had a ball just turned around to go dribble, and it fell out of his hands. So they did kind of struggle with that. And Paul and Craig, you're going to get in the tournament, and much less other people see that too. You get one of these teams early on in the tournament that's athletic, that puts pressure on the ball, that may go watch the Marquette film, because they destroyed Baylor with pressure and athleticism. That is, it appears, to, maybe they just need a couple more practices, but that is an issue.
No, they've had it a couple times. Like, they got to stop getting trapped in the corner. That happened to Flagler. I'm just blanking on the game, though. It happened to Flagler in a similar situation a few weeks ago, and the ball went out of bounds, and they had this review. And then last night, the same thing. And because they're not a team that has a tremendous amount of size, and then last night, down the stretch when they could have used some of that size in the last minute, Jalen Bridges and Flo Thamba had fouled out. So that means that Caleb Lohner is going to come in the game, and, he's raw. I think, to put it in the nicest way possible when it comes to a lot of those things. So, yeah, they don't have the length. I told you this morning when we were talking about it, before, when they were in those situations in 2021 or even in 2020 going back, they had a guy like Maceo Teague whose arms were really long, so it was a little easier for him to
wingspan. He
had that wingspan. They don't have that same kind of wingspan on this team right now, outside of guys like Jalen Bridges or the other, Jonathan Chamwachachua. But again, you're not going to inbound the ball to him most of the time, because what good is that going to do you? He's got to be down the floor. So all of that, they've got to figure that stuff out. But the good news for Baylor is that teams with big-time offenses and guards usually win in the tournament, because that's not what most people have. Now, could they run up against a bad matchup? But yeah, but so can anybody. That's what March is about. It's about when you wake up on Sunday morning and go to your little watch party, what teams are going to be not only you getting in, but what teams are you in the grab bag with? Look, the first Elite Eight Baylor went to was, yes, that was a fantastic team. That was a bad call from the refs away from maybe being in the Final Four even longer before they were. But until they hit Duke, it was like the NCAA committee had pushed them ass backwards into the best possible matchup for them along the way when they had St. Mary's and these other teams that they had.
Well, the other teams had the lose, too, that set that up.
But they were good. Everything, in their bubble, in their pod there, or bracket, part of the bracket was, okay, if this team wins, then we match up well with the team that wins. If go on and go on and go on, and that until you got to Duke, right? So,
yeah, that's also the luck of whoever wins in front of you, too. But some of the teams were good matchups for them. But, Craig, the pressure last night, it got to a point where there was a ball out of bounds that absolutely could have gone either way. Baylor got the ball back. The review showed they should have gotten the ball back. But and they won the game on the road. Then they dominated, controlled the game for the most part. But that does seem to be something that needs to be tightened up, and they've had problems with it even not just last night.
Yeah, I don't know how they typically address games like that, whereas, you lose and you're probably pretty down and everybody's just kind of got that, well, we lost feeling, so it's just natural to probably be a little quieter and, maybe it's just a little silent on the bus type of thing, and then you go back to the drawing board. If you win, you celebrate it for, 24 hours or whatever the rule is. But a game like that where you won, but you came so close to just a abysmal loss. I mean, that went from feel-good, blowout, enjoy your night, win, to really truly wondering, is this going to be one of the worst losses they could possibly suffer at this moment? Mm-hmm. Because it wasn't like the lead got cut down to 12 or like the lead got cut down to 10 and they kept a barrier. It got down to where they just needed a couple plays to happen and they're tied and going to overtime or they're losing that game. I mean, from blowout city to absolute white knuckling the end of that basketball game. So, yeah, that was way too close for comfort. You can point to a few different things. You're right. The pressure they faced, they did not handle it well. And so that's like when people ask here as of late, like on the podcast earlier today, I referenced it again, the Bearcast. Check it out, especially primarily if you're a Baylor fan. But, have questions about how far do you think they'll go into the tournaments. I need to see the bracket first. Because who are they potentially facing? I mean, if they're chock full of a bunch of teams that are super athletic and long, they can pressure you, that can, harass you up and down the court, then, we might be looking at an earlier exit versus, a bracket where they're one of the more athletic teams. There's not a bunch of teams that can really, stifle them defensively or create too much of a panic. I mean, that all depends on your draw, and their draw remains to be seen. So, yeah, I mean, you cross your fingers if you're a Baylor fan that they don't run into a Marquette type of a team that gave them so much trouble earlier in this season. But, I mean, that's what we all await for Selection Sunday, is to see, what that path may look like. And for the Bears, I mean, I think you put them up against about anybody out there. But there are moments like last night where you go, shoot, they play a certain type of team. I mean, they could find themselves leaving that tourney a lot earlier than expected. So,
well, a hot team last year in North Carolina that was had Baycott, and of course their guards were hot in that game. All right, sports tonight. Don't forget our show at 10:30 tonight on CW. Thanks to Emery Winter, he'll edit everything down and get that to us. Now, here's an interesting story, and this is a compliment to us, and I'm not putting it up there because of that, but because Mack Rhodes will be on with us today. Dean Straka wrote a story from 247 Sports on Mack Rhodes, who was on with us last week. He's on with us today in about an hour, where the title is Baylor AD Mack Rhodes on NIL. Lack of no, that's not the one I sent to you. Is that the one I sent? Okay. Let me read. I got the title in front of me. I thought I sent you a completely different story. Baylor AD Mack Rhodes, Big 12 must be ready for movement from Pac-12 schools if media negotiations collapse. He said to us last week, I'm certainly not rooting for the demise of any particular conference, but I'm also looking out for what is best for Baylor. And what is best for Baylor is really, really strong Big 12. And one that secures its future, but not over just the next 6 years, but beyond. there is a short game, but also a long game for this. It is dependent on what happens among the Pac-12. There may be movement if whatever media deal they're able to strike is not satisfactory. We have to be prepared for what I think we are if that was to happen. Again, looking out for the Big 12, how do we strengthen ourselves? He said that to us last week. We, of course, had the interview, and then they put the story up, and, of course, it went a lot of different directions. I would think that half of the people thought that maybe he shouldn't have gone there, and half of the people thought that, wait a minute, why not? So here is one of the reactions. John Wilner covers the Pac-12 hotline, the Wilner hotline. We've had John on before. And athletic director Mack Rhodes talks on the record about the possible demise of another conference. What a time to be alive. Mack did not say he hoped the Pac-12 failed. He said that if, in fact, it doesn't work out, they have to be ready. And Mack is very transparent. He does not BS. He is going to say how he feels. And I say that because about June of last year, George Kliavkoff, in an article, put up Pac-12's George Kliavkoff says on Big 12, we haven't decided if we're going shopping there yet or not. Now, this was also in response to the commissioner, Brett Yormark, maybe lobbing some grenades towards the Pac-12, which is actually how Kliavkoff mentioned that there was interest in other his teams in the Pac-12. Listen, people are on the record with this, but I just thought I would put that up there today to start out the show, and Mack will join us in about an hour.
He just answered a direct question with a direct answer. I mean, that's all that he did. I mean, he wasn't – believe me, Mack was not trying to set the social media world on fire with any of his comments. It was just – I think that should be the case for – like, if we asked an athletic director in the Big Ten the same question, they might answer it the same way of like, okay, well – what do you think the best future is for the Big Ten? Well, we've got to make sure that we stay competitive with the SEC. And, we feel like we're on good ground right now. We've got a great media rights deal. But as those things change, we might have to, in the future, consider other things to enhance our media rights deal. Well, and then if he mentions the Pac-12. But, yeah, the Big 12 and the Pac-12 are inextricably linked until all this gets resolved. The thing is that it's not really – there's not a resolution that's permanent, right? There's no anything that happens, even the Big 12, even, has an end date to it because the media rights deals are only so long.
In 5 to 7 years, we'll be right here again, and maybe even sooner, and even could be much more disruption in college athletics, which we've talked about pretty much every day.
Well, I mean, that's just an interesting comment because I know those guys have to listen to some extent. I saw where I think Canzano said they're having Bob Thompson on here, pretty soon. So I don't think Bob Thompson was, just all across the country doing radio interviews prior to you contacting him and connecting with him. And he's been a great guest, and he was great just a few days ago. But, clearly everybody's kind of sharing the same information ultimately. And the information that they're going to get is exactly what he told us the other day of like, hey, there's maybe not necessarily as many dire things out there as it's been projected by people who are sort of rooting for the worst to happen with the Pac-12, but let's not say it's all sunshine and rainbows either. Like there are some grave concerns going on, and I think you're even seeing the tone change a little bit. Are you not? In like the last couple of days, even of like people who were, this is all baloney, this is ridiculous, everything's fine, going all of a sudden, okay, there might be a little bit of an issue going on here. Like there might be, and so, people are coming to grips with like, yeah, this is actually, not something that's being overblown entirely. This is something that's taken far too long for what was originally expected. And there are far lesser options now than was originally expected. And, I would just say in terms of that tweet right there, I think that at some point, all due respect to John Wilner, who does a great job, covering the Pac-12, but I would imagine at some point he's had somebody in his mentions going, saying something about a story that he tweeted or posted, and he can tell pretty quickly that the person only read the headline, right?
Yeah.
Like, what, did you not read the article? And I'm pretty sure I saw Canzano say as much to Jason Shear, our Arizona buddy, as they continue to get into it over what's going on with the Pac-12. So I'm sure that Wilner's, had that situation before. If somebody just reads a headline and they comment, about his article and he has to set them straight. I would say that he got caught with the headline right there. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah.
He got caught with the headline. So I think that, that's a situation where maybe should have listened to it or read it a little bit further and could see that it wasn't Mack Rhodes out on the attack or out on the prowl for poaching Pac-12 teams. I mean, it was in response to a specific type of a question, and it was just, I mean, what else is he going to say? Like, I mean, if he says, no, we have absolutely zero interest, none whatsoever in any Pac-12 team, or we're not going to expand, well, that's news too, right? And so I think he's just saying loudly what everybody else is whispering, and not even so much whispering at this point. Everybody knows the situation. The Pac-12 is having trouble with this TV deal. Even the most ardent Pac-12 supporters are finally going, okay, there's some concerns starting to grow. Now, whether it's to the level of doomsday scenarios, I don't think we're anywhere close to that. I don't think that the Pac-12 is going to fall apart next week and the Big 12 is going to grow by another 4 schools. Like, I don't think we're there yet. But as each day passes by, there's a little bit more of like, okay, so now it's almost March and we've been doing this. And so, yeah, I think everybody's just a little uptight and you know, wanting to know what's going to happen. But by no means was Mack Rhodes, you know, out there professing his love and, you know, his throwing out his sales pitch to the Pac-12. I mean, that was just simply saying, like, yeah, if they fall apart, we're going to absolutely be ready to scoop them up, whoever we deem fit. And you know what? The Pac-12, if they were smart, we're ready to scoop up whoever they feel like was going to be good enough if that situation unfolded with the Big 12 falling apart. And someone might say, well, they wouldn't have had any interest. Okay, but they would at least discuss the possibility of, we look into, would Oklahoma State be worthwhile? Would Kansas be worthwhile? And every conference would. So, you know, that's not that big of a deal in the long run. I don't think that's some big smoking gun that Mack Rhodes is on the record talking about them being ready if in case something were to happen with the Pac-12 or any other conference out there.
One of the things about Mack is, I've told this story before. He was in like an administrators meeting, right? And AD, go ahead, Paul. Well, I'll tell this and then you. But we have been told this before. When he does a segment with us, they might have been in an AD senior whatever administration meeting, and he was like, one time, it was not anything major, but it was like, we need to try to keep this let's let this stay down for a couple of days. It was a good news thing. He comes on our show. I happened to ask him about said whatever topic. He answered it. He goes back into the meeting, and some of the senior administrators like, what the hell? You told us to keep on this for a couple of days, and he basically said he asked. I'm not gonna be honest about it. And so, you know, and there could be some political stuff in between, but Mack's not that way. And not everybody likes it that way, but I have always liked it that way. Go ahead and follow up on what Craig was saying, too.
But to follow up on what Craig's saying, like the demise is not tomorrow. It's not a month from now. It's not this year. It's probably not, you know, until a few years. But there's a couple of phases to this which could go, which you have to foresee the path. Like, ideally for the Pac-12, even though they're not going to get maybe as much money overall as they wanted to, they're not going to get, you know, $45 million a year or whatever they thought that they were worth. If they get $28 a year, and that's before the playoff revenue and all that stuff. So they get $28 million a year.
And that might be pushing it just based on rumors.
So, I'm being generous right now with that, but $28 million a year. Well, what happens is that, okay, everything's fine for right now, and then you go through a couple years, and you've got some schools that when their television numbers come back, they probably find themselves maybe like in Oregon and Washington in a similar situation to at least maybe not overall numbers-wise, but Oregon and Washington's games might be doing really well for the Pac-12, and then the other ones might not be because they're not right now, right? We know what the numbers have been for that. We've seen them. So Oregon and Washington, they're going, hey, wait a minute, this is just really not good for us long term. And then the plan starts after that. That's where it's going is heading down the road of what happens when we, get this and we don't have as much money coming back, or we're not getting as much attention. You go through a 12-team playoff cycle and, without USC in the league and without that happening, and if UCLA continues to be good in the Big Ten, but without those two teams in the league, all right, well, the conference champion makes it a 12-team playoff, but nobody else does. And you're like, well, there's, 3 Big Ten teams and 4 SEC teams and, a couple of ACC and a couple of Big 12 teams, and we got one. We've got the same amount as the Mountain West got because they had a team that was the highest ranked group of 5. That's not good. So then those little things start to grow up, and then all of a sudden it's the apocalypse. But it is that we're not they're not to that phase until they agree to this TV deal and see how it pays out. Now, optimistically, what most of them are probably hoping going is, okay, we've agreed to less money, but there is a better demand than we realize for our product, and we're fine and we move it forward. That just doesn't seem all that likely to me.
Yeah. So there's that, and I saw Paxton Google Mack Rhodes, and there's 3 or 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12 different links to his quotes, to our interview with us on 365 Sports, and how people of different parts of the country have put it up and run with it.
Yeah.
And that was a week ago.
Wanted to single out one of the comments I saw to Wilner's Replies, and actually somebody said, like, did you just read the article or just read the headline? And it's like, yeah, so that somebody else was feeling similarly. But I liked this one from Charlie, who said, he responded with one of the quotes from Mack Rhodes. I am certainly not rooting for the demise of any particular conference, but I am also looking out for what is best for Baylor, and what is best for Baylor is a really, really strong Big 12 and one that secures its future, but not over just the next 6 years, but beyond. So, I mean, that's a quote right there. I am certainly not rooting for the demise of any particular conference. And as we know, Mack Rhodes went to what school? Arizona. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of Pac-12, Big 12 connections, but I don't think, even if, he's in Big 12 country now, that he's rooting for the demise of, the institution that is the Pac-12 and what Arizona has meant in that conference. I don't think that he wants to just, my school, I want to bring them into the Big 12. I don't think anybody's really looking to do that per se, but you do have to be realistic about the situation. And if we've seen anything so far from Brett Yormark and these Big 12 ADs, is that they realize that they used up most of their 9 lives over these last couple of decades when it comes to the conference and its stability. They, did not necessarily make the best decisions along the way, and some of that was out of their control, and they could have made all the right decisions, and it still wouldn't have mattered in the end. Texas and Oklahoma were probably going to leave, or Nebraska or Colorado, whoever. But there is a different sense about the conference, now, and I think that they're, for the first time in a really long time, on the hunt. And not necessarily going out to try and make a kill, but if they need to, they'll be ready to. And it's as simple as that. It's nothing about trying to go and eliminate anybody else or destroy anybody else. It's just simply like, if we need to eat, then we're going to be ready to eat. And it's as simple as that. So the Pac-12, go put your TV deal together, and you have nothing to worry about. Nobody's leaving. Big 12's not going to grab anybody as long as it's respectable enough in comparison. But, yeah, if you are suddenly well short of even the Big 12 number, much less the rest of the country, then you have nobody else to blame but yourself for some schools in your conference that you have, had close tabs on, perhaps deciding that maybe another neighborhood would be a little bit nicer. That has nothing to do with Mack Rhodes making a public comment. That has simply more to do with the Pac-12 not handling their business the way that they should have.
All right, so when we come back, I had a chance today earlier to sit down and record an interview with Seth Greenberg of ESPN's College Game Day. We'll have that for you in just a minute. He talks mainly about the Big 12. I did ask him about a couple of mid-majors that have caught his attention. And in basketball, the mid-majors, that is a thing. Like, there's a mid-majors ranking. My alma mater, Stephen F. Austin's a part of a mid-major. But then, do you think Gonzaga's a mid-major? That San Diego State or St. Mary's are in that conversation? But there is that term mid-major. But I asked him about a couple of mid-majors that are on his radar and what he thinks about that among some other teams also in the Big 12. So Mack Rhodes will join us in a little less than an hour. Craig's off the radar. Paul's top 5 today. And John McLean, Hall of Fame columnist, will join us today at around 5:30. A couple of other quick notes, and then we need to break. Freddie Kitchens, former Cleveland Browns head coach, is going to join North Carolina as its run game coordinator and tight ends coach. Former Oregon star. Remember, it seemed like a long time ago, Marcus Mariota has been released by the Atlanta Falcons.
I really thought he was going to be so much better than he turned out to be. And I don't know, maybe I just got caught in the hoopla of how good Oregon was during that period in time, and obviously Heisman Trophy and all that stuff. But, yeah, he was fun to watch, man. And I just feel like in today's league, I figured he'd fit better than he does. But he doesn't have it.
And look, I realize on this first person that I'm infinitely biased and will probably always be, but I thought he and Jameis, as the 1 and 2 picks, I thought, man, that is a really solid. Both those guys are quite good. And if you looked at the competition both of them were going up against and what they were doing to them, that's kind of my measuring stick. So sometimes, compared to like Carson Wentz, who now has actually been the worst quarterback in the NFL over like a decade, like compared to the last, he's 24th out of 24 guys who've thrown as many passes as him in all these categories.
And yet somebody else will sign him.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. But he, like Carson Wentz, was at North Dakota State, and no knock against North Dakota State, but he didn't have those games where he was, throwing passes against, first-round draft pick DBs and was throwing to first-round draft pick wide receivers. Both those guys were, and they were doing fantastic against it, and it just did not work out for them. And it may not be – sometimes also it's not an ability question because some of the guys with the best ability just don't work out. It's just about where you wind up, what your situation is, and it comes too late. David Carr is a great example of that. I think even though Fresno State guy, I think if you could take David Carr and put him in a better situation than the Texans put him in, he probably has a much better career than he did. It's just a bad situation.
Yeah, expansion franchise and all of that. I mean, a true expansion franchise. Yeah, Carson Wentz, that was one where Chris Kleiman was probably like, man, we're going to be able to ride this development of quarterbacks and this high pick for years. And it's like, Carson Wentz. And, but Mariota, I mean,
now it's Trey Lance, right? Isn't Trey Lance from North Dakota State? Yep.
But even still, when's he going to fit into the picture? But and another Big 12 connection there is Mariota. Part of the reason why Atlanta's so willing to let him go is, despite him playing a bunch of games last year, was Desmond Ritter's emergence. And, the fact that Cincinnati Bearcat, who had such a great college career, is, suddenly looking like he could be the man for them moving forward. So it made that decision a lot easier, and that's great for Cincinnati. I mean, having that, you don't have to have that NFL shine all the time, but man, when you do, it does make promoting and marketing and things like that so much easier and so much better and so much more fun. Like the brief period of window that Baylor had with RG3, it was night and day from what it is like now, right? Just having that star power attached to you. So that's great for Cincinnati. And I loved watching Mariota at Oregon. So
I did too. Good dude, too.
I'm sure he'll get another chance somewhere.
Just saw a Titans fan on the chat room saying, please come back to Tennessee. This is a note because last night, and then we go to a break. Baylor women, we know that it's been kind of a tough road. We had Nikki Collin on last week. They beat Texas and Austin last night. That's a shocker based on what we've seen. Huge win for them. And then the note, Garrett,
Dariana Littlepage Bugs
has now recorded more double-doubles her freshman year than even perhaps the greatest women's player of all time, and Brittany Griner did. And, of course, Brittany was fantastic her freshman year at Baylor. So there's that note. Nice win for Nikki Collin and company. They have one more to come. And Texas, I would think, would have had balloons and confetti and whatever else ready to come out of the rafters to celebrate a regular season title, but that will be delayed because Baylor stunned them last night in a hell of a game from a lot of different players.
Yeah, Garrett has said on the podcast, I mean, they got a couple young players to build around, right? I mean, it's been a struggle, but
Fauntleroy and Littlepage Bugs.
And Dariana Littlepage Bugs,
All right. Go ahead, Garrett.
No, I was just saying, they got some key pieces. It's going to be interesting to watch them grow and develop, but Dariana Littlepage Bugs is going to be a star.
And they have Dre Edwards, who will be playing next year. And maybe Blackwell comes back because she wasn't able to showcase her skills much this year, among others. All right, when we come back, Seth Greenberg, ESPN College Game Day. College basketball. This is the last week of the regular season. There are some conference tournaments happening. His thoughts about Big 12, this and that, and mid-majors as well. This is 365 Sports. Pioneer Steel and Pipe. They have the new location. Opened up back in early December on the South Loop 340, which is on the east side of I-35. If you're coming in from the south to into Waco, it's here. It's been here. It's been here for almost now, nearly 3 months. They have a new facility. And on top of that, new inventory for you, the customer, whether it's commercial or real estate, a warehouse that's massive, and also tons of new construction and welding supplies available in their 2,500 square foot showroom. More product than ever before, which also means their distribution and times, which have always been elite, are even better, and different sizes of product, different lengths of product, so you don't have to go pick it up and then have somebody else cut it or do it yourself. It is full throttle with what they have. PioneerBoys.com.
Kick off 2023 with a bang at Allen Samuels in Waco. During the President's Day sales event, get a 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo with total values up to $2,000 and 1.9% for 72 months on second and third row options. That's right, 1.9% for 72 months plus rebates. Or how about the 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport with up to $3,500 in total values plus an extra $500 to first responders at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
ESPN Seth Greenberg with us, 365 Sports, and we're down to the wire. Some conference tournaments about to begin, and of course others with the conference schedule wrapping up this weekend. Seth, let's discuss the Big 12. Do they ever disappoint as far as the roller coaster of who's up and who's down? Kansas is separated for now with a game left. 2 games left. Your thoughts about what the Jayhawks are doing right now?
Jayhawks are playing at a high level. I mean, what's happened is I think that, look, the Big 12, you're going to have a blip in the road. I mean, that's just the way it is. It's cumulative effect of the league, and they went through that, and they've gotten through it. Yeah, and I think, that's the key. I mean, Baylor went through a similar situation, and they fought through it, and it kind of attests to basically your culture in a lot of ways. But when you look at Kansas, their starting 5 is as good as any. And, I'm a big KJ Adams fan. I think, his ability to defend out on the perimeter, his ability to switch, his ability to, get to the offensive glass, be a short and long roller. I think they got the best overall set of wings in college basketball with McCullough, obviously Grady Dick, and And Jalen Wilson, as opposed to like Baylor, maybe the best set of guards in college basketball. But I think that in general, Kansas got through that tough time. The one guy that's got to play well for them each and every night is Juwan Harris, though. You take Juwan Harris out, they struggle. And I mean, I take him out, either get him in foul trouble, forget about just scoring, but, get the ball out of his hands, because he is the purest of point guards maybe in the Big 12.
Seth, Baylor had, they had that 0-3 start, and they came all the way back, and then they lost back-to-back games as well to Kansas and Kansas State on the road, where they led at halftime, and then they just looked terrible in the second half. But then Texas in town, and they handled their business after a terrible start. And Scott Drew getting a few other players involved because Keontae George goes down. Your thoughts about what he's been able to maneuver since those two games they lost in Kansas?
Yeah, I think it's just Scott being Scott. I mean, obviously get Langston a couple of minutes. Del Bonner obviously stepped up the other night and gave him, not only made those free throws down the stretch, but gave him an experience and a poise. Getting JTT back, I think, just changes him defensively. I mean, he's almost a phenomenon to me. His ability to move his feet with everything he's been through, his ability to guard a drag ball screen transition, get back to the front of the rim, communicate, and then even offensively do the things he's done has been incredible. But I've been really, really impressed with Scott's intensity, but his patience. And I think that's the big thing. He's been a little bit more animated with this team. Mm-hmm. Like he's fighting with this team. It seems like, I don't mean against them, I mean with them. He's standing by their side. And I think they're feeding off of that. I thought the technical yesterday was an example of that.
Yeah, he has been more outward when it comes to that, and has been on the edge of a couple of other technical fouls. And I think last night it seemed like to me he didn't like maybe that there were some things that he didn't like, but also maybe frustration because Oklahoma State, despite being down, they were just dominating the offensive boards.
Yeah, they were kicking their tail on the glass. I mean, and most times coaches get teased because they're frustrated with their team's play. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, it's an automatic, and it's just you take it out on the official, especially the one closest to you. I mean, you give them 3 and 4 consecutive offensive rebounds, and ball gets shot, and you see everyone falling the flat of the ball instead of cutting some out on the weak side. It's easier to do that than maybe to fuss with a player until you get him in a timeout. So, that's my only concern. I mean, my only concern is obviously Jalen Bridges is not a true 4-man. He's got to stick his nose in there. He offensive rebounds, but he's got to stick his nose in there and help him defensive rebound. I think that's really, really important. And the guard's got to continue to come back and help him rebound the ball. But, that's the one thing that, if I look at it, they've got to shore that area up.
They have had some issues, including last night, with getting the ball through pressure. And of course, pressure's there to create turnovers, but it does seem like they're – the one guy just to take it. Like, obviously, we can go back 2 years when you had the great Davion Mitchell. And Flagler's done a nice job at the point position, but they are struggling a little bit. There's been 2 or 3 games that almost got out of hand at the end because they weren't handling pressure better. Is that just getting back in the gym with practice?
Yeah, probably. This time of the year, you're really working on preparing for your next game. And I mentor a bunch of coaches, and I tell them all, I said, I understand preparing for the next game, but this time of the year, you should be understanding, be able to defend on principles and personnel. I think that you've got to work on your team. What are the things that can get you beat? And I think that coaches need to spend more time on their own team this time of the year than they realize. You can get your team, especially this time of the year, you've seen the team for a second time a lot of times. So you have a little bit of a feel. You've guarded about every situation humanly possible. You can work on your team and the intricacies of trying to kind of steal baskets. But I really believe this time of the year, coaches need to be really focused on paying the legitimate amount of attention to their team and not just the next game.
Seth, the Big 12, Oklahoma State is right there on the bubble. West Virginia with a huge win against Iowa State. Seems like they're back in the picture. Can they get really 8 or 9? Is it possible, or do you think that cap is 7 or 8 in the tournament?
I think it's 7 or 8 because they're eating their own.
Yeah.
I just think that, right now, Oklahoma State, they've lost, I think, 5 in a row now. Actually, I think they've lost 5 in a row, maybe even 6 in a row right now. I mean, I'm interested to see, and this is something I post to our game day people for this weekend. The Big 12 is so difficult. You're going to play probably of the 18 games you're going to play 15 that are going to be quad 1 games. So you know what? You're going to have a team like West Virginia or Oklahoma State. You're going to be 5-12, maybe, or 5-10 in quad 1. They've never seen anything like that. How do you evaluate that? Because you've got teams that are really good teams, but still, they're going to have a lot of losses against quad 1. How do you evaluate that against a team that's only maybe like 4-4 against quad 1?
Do you feel like, and we saw the example against the SEC, the Big 12 had a nice day. They pretty much took control of that challenge. Do you think that once the tournament begins, the style of play helps or hurts them in the tournament, and or it's a breath of fresh air of playing somebody else for a change?
I think it's a good balance right there. I think it's going to be a breath of fresh air, and I think that teams that have to play against most of the sideline defenses of the Big 12 are going to have a problem. My only concern, people lose their minds, don't at me, it's just an opinion, and I speak from officials. Mm-hmm. We know the Big 12 is the most physical league in college basketball. It's just the way it is. All right? And there are no secrets in league play. And it's officiated differently. I had one official tell me, look, we called every single foul in the league. The best players would be sitting on the bench. And we don't want that to happen. So we're basically officiating advantage, disadvantage. So, I mean, my only concern is because the league is so physical, does that put the league at a disadvantage in terms of how the game is going to be officiated? Because those fouls, and especially in the first and second round, when guys are trying to advance to the next weekend, they're going to call for the letter of the law. Now, I think Baylor and Kansas are 2 teams that are in a good place with that because they're not as overly physical defensively. They'll keep it sidelines. They'll pressure the ball. Kansas switches more. But I think both of those teams don't foul as much and don't have to redefine a foul like maybe some of the teams in the league do.
Seth, Texas lost on Saturday, had a great start, but then just couldn't do it. Baylor was, of course, in an angry mood after the 2 games they lost to KU and Kansas State. Rodney Terry's done an amazing job considering all of the early season drama. Your thoughts about UT as they move down? They play tomorrow, and then they play also Saturday to try to close it out, and still with an outside shot of a piece of the Big 12 title.
Yeah, they have Kansas at home. But that game at TCU with a healthy Mike Miles is not going to be easy. I mean, TCU, you talk about a physical team. You talk about a team that plays with speed. You talk about a team that's hard to play against. They're the real deal. There's no doubt about it. So Texas, Rodney's done a great job. They've got a great staff. They've got 6 seniors. They've got a very good basketball team, a mature basketball team that has been able to navigate all the obstacles this season has presented.
Seth, a couple of teams, Blue Bloods. Kentucky seems to be in a nice run. North Carolina needed wins, and they've been able to pick up a couple of this week. Your thoughts about the Wildcats and Tar Heels?
Yeah, I think Kentucky's figured it out to some extent. Casey Wallace, the point guard, has been huge. And what people don't understand, where he's really helped him his ability to defend the basketball. So you take a non-defender out, Xavier Wheeler, you're putting a big physical guard in, and then he can get to the rim and make a shot. I think he's changed him. And then John Calipari has empowered Jacob Topping, and I think that Oscar's getting healthier. So I think that's been interesting. North Carolina's got a long way to go. Only 1 quad 1 win. I would say the better, they got a great opportunity this weekend with Duke, which would give them a second quad 1 win, and that would be huge for their resume. But I think they still need 2 more wins against the field, is my gut feel.
Well, a couple more things. Seth Greenberg, ESPN College Game Day with us, ESPN College Basketball analyst. Houston will be a part of the Big 12 next year, which is going to be amazing with what Kelvin Sampson's doing, what he's done, and this year's team right there right now, ranked number 1. Your thoughts about them when they get to the tournament? Is this a year, and they've made that run, of course, we know what happened in Indianapolis with Baylor, but do you feel like this team can be in the Final Four?
It can be. It's one of the teams that can be. I mean, they're an elite defense, an elite rebounding team. They have terrific guard play. The negative, they have five starters right now. We're all averaging double figures in American Conference play. The big concern for them is, at times they get stuck offensively, but everyone's got a scar. There's no one without a scar in college basketball right now. So, I think they're a fun team to watch. They play so hard. They're so fiercely competitive. They've got terrific guard play. Sasser's playing really at a high level right now. So, they've got as good a shot as any.
Is there a mid-major team in particular that kind of has caught your attention? Obviously, there's Cinderellas that we know that's going to happen. It's part of the tournament. That's why it's so great. But is there a mid-major team that has kind of caught your attention as somebody you think this could be fun to watch?
A mid-major team, I think it'll be interesting, like a Utah State who scores it so effortlessly. Taylor Funk and their ability to score. If they get in, and again, there's no guarantee that they're going to get in, but if they get in, I think they'll be dangerous. Boise State is a team that offensively and defensively is kind of like in a top 25. They're a team that maybe can put some pressure on people. I mean, I don't call them mid-major. St. Mary's, we just saw Gonzaga played St. Mary's. St. Mary's, an experienced team. Aiden Mahaney, a freshman, is a fun kid to watch. They're physical and experienced. Logan Johnson is just a hard-playing, left-handed kid that goes right. So I'd say those teams probably are just some teams that maybe jump out at me.
Seth, you guys do an incredible job. We always appreciate your time with us. Thank you very much. We're a day away from March the 1st. That'll be a heck of a fun week. In the next 5 or 6 weeks, thanks for your time.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it, man.
Seth Greenberg, ESPN, College Game Day with 365 Sports. It has been really nice to have Seth Greenberg, Jay Billis, LaFonso Ellis, among others who have joined the show. And not just during the time Baylor made the run in 2021 national championship, but many of the times we've had these guys on, including more to come here in the next 3 to 5 weeks. All right, when we come back, much more to get to. Top of the hour, coming up in a little bit, Mack Rhodes in about 30 minutes. This is 365 Sports. The staff at Don Humidor and Coffee Beans, Ashley, Cheyenne, Carol, knowledgeable about all of their products. Always more than happy to help you find any kind of cigar you want, coffee beans you like, and also even the pipe tobacco, CBD, or even THC assortment for you. Don Humidor has any gift that you want, whether it's just something that you want to give to a friend or for yourself. Holidays, of course, are over, but now the weather starts to warm up, and so a different type of coffee maybe that you want for that time of the year. Don Humidor has new coffees. The warmer temperatures make the best cup of coffee in town, and you can do it inside your own kitchen. They have fresh coffee beans, or you can get them to grind it for you. Also, 700-plus cigars in their 48-foot walk-in humidor. Cigar Aficionado did tap Nicaragua's Padron 1964 Anniversary Series Torpedo as the #1 cigar back in 2021, and that is still inside the humidor at Don Humidor and Coffee Beans. Arturo Fuente, Macanudo, Aston, Cohiba, Padron, Rocky Patel, Monte Cristo, My Father, others, and they have them. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Townwest Shopping Center just off Valley Mills in Waco.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and 2-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry, and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes, cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
This is 365 Sports. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
The 770 on the text line, and we have the chat room that's constantly giving as far as opinions and questions. We love it. We appreciate you. Then there's the text line. And last night, the 770 sent this one. I know I'm missing the revenue sharing window a little bit, late to the conversation, but I've always thought that if there is inequity in revenue sharing, the team that is being paid more should proportionately share its excess with any team that beats them.
Here's why that's not a plausible idea, in that it has nothing to do with who's winning. None of that.
No, you're right.
None of it has to do with who's winning the league. I mean, honestly, only two teams have regularly, like I gave the stat last week, and he may have missed this, but of the last 33 ACC titles, and there are some shared ones in there, but Florida State and Clemson have had a share at least of 24 of them. So it's not about who's winning the league, because most of the time it's them anyway. But even in the years where someone else like Georgia Tech or Wake Forest or Virginia Tech won the league, the television numbers are still on the side of Florida State and Clemson. That's why they're mad. Now, is that a fair metric overall to grade people on? That's
hold on, stop for a second. They're mad because others they're competing with elsewhere are getting more money.
Yes.
Not because of the revenue and the revenue sharing being equal.
Yes, exactly.
That created that match.
Yeah, so that those things, but then when they say, well, we're getting this, creating this much of the value of the league, it has nothing to do with if they win the game or not. That's a like kind of a, could be a one-off thing. Like, so you want to give Boston College a bonus because they had the greatest upset of their life? Okay, great. Well, I mean, what does that really do? I mean, like, that's not a sustainable metric either. So I get it. Like, oh, you're getting more, you should beat them. But, you know, when Texas, A&M, and Oklahoma, and I guess Nebraska were all getting unequal revenue share, it wasn't about who was winning then either, because A&M was getting more and they weren't beating Nebraska all that often. I think they maybe only beat them like 2 or 3 times, and one of them was on the way out the door and it was like 6-3.
Yeah.
So
it was
yeah,
and Dominic Sue's year.
Yeah. So it doesn't make that doesn't really stick with me.
I think it's just a fair question. I mean, not everybody follows it as closely as we do, obviously. And so, I mean, I can understand where it gets a little bit confusing when you're hearing all these terms about revenue sharing and this and that, and you're just simply a sports fan who's wondering how wins and losses still matter the most. And then you come to a point in time where they don't matter really in this at all, although I guess you could argue that winning helped create the brands to be as big as they are or helped get them there over time. But yeah, I mean, that's not how it works. It's about TV eyeballs and about who brings in the most of those and brings in the most money. Because if it was about winning, then yeah, the college football landscape would look a lot different. And you wouldn't see the same old teams who, no matter win or loss, they stay in the exact same spot no matter what. That wouldn't necessarily be the case. But yeah, that's not what this is about. But it does make you wonder, like, yeah, if Oregon or Washington was getting unequal revenue sharing, and the odds are that they would win probably more often than not. But if, Utah was, kicking their head in every year, and then, whoever else you would want to throw in that mix, like Oregon State or something, was like the premier, team all of a sudden and was beating them every year, it would be a little funny, wouldn't it? And you'd maybe wonder, if you don't follow it super closely, of like, why are they getting paid more than us? We're winning, we're beating them regularly. We're winning the conference. Like, why are they making more money? Well, just because they're a bigger brand and they bring more eyeballs. It's really that simple. But yes, believe it or not, we do talk sports where it's about wins and losses. And yet this is a conversation where it isn't even so much about that. It's about eyeballs and TV viewers and revenue and things of that nature. So, yeah, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but it doesn't work that way.
It is a fair point. And in fact, Paxton said that. And then again, it's not the way it works, but it's a fair point, because if you look at the highest revenue stream programs, yes, Ohio State has held their end of the bargain, more so. Then you have some that haven't. I mean, even USC recently, up until last year, they had been hit and miss. Texas, of course, has had a decade of a lot of disappointment. They've had some nice games and wins along the way, but we understand that's who they are. That's part of the deal. And but yeah, that would almost be like what would that be? Would be like a salary cap in a way. All right, you're allowed to make this much, but you got to give some of it back. What do they do in baseball? What's that called? It's a
it's the
baseball's not that
the luxury tax.
The luxury tax. Yeah.
But I don't think. But see, that's just it, because it's a year-to-year basis. So the other thing is, all right, what happens when Clemson's 15-0? Nobody's getting any of that money, right? So, or if they have the seasons like they did where they won the national championship and lost in the playoff game and only lost one game along the way for 2 years, one team's getting $50,000. I mean, what's the...
No, you couldn't. Okay. There's no way you could ever come up with any kind of math to figure that out.
So when Florida State was 4-8 a couple of years ago, how do you determine... Okay, so they lost to Clemson and they lost to UNC. Well, they've never lost to UNC, but they lost to Clemson and they lost to, Miami, who might have also been in this mix. So those two don't count because they're already getting money. And then the other 6 schools get how much of that money? Like, there's no way to actually do it. And that, like, I get that it's a punishment fee for being snooty and being better, but like, it's never been about that. Like, it's never been about that for any conference that's done this. You mentioned USC. USC sat in meetings for several years deciding the Pac-12 wasn't doing well enough for them. Well, they weren't really doing well enough for the Pac-12 either, but still getting ratings because they're USC. So that's what it was about. I mean, like, Texas and OU left the for the SEC because they felt they could get no bigger in the Big 12. Now, a lot of that was their doing, but Texas for the last decade hasn't been moving the needle as far as, when it comes to wins and losses, but they still do when it comes to notoriety. I mean, there's a difference between what counts and what matters. And like what matters to, fans is winning, and what counts to the people who are in charge isn't necessarily that, because they can't do that.
Which teams have moved conferences? Texas and Oklahoma, we know exactly why. Both of them command and get a ton of people who watch them. They also have incredible tradition, even though Oklahoma's had much more the last 20 years than 10 or 15 years than Texas. And they're money makers. Huge.
Look,
they don't feel that they're making the money that they deserve because they are being held down by smaller schools who aren't going to allow them to have a conference that is going to get a TV deal like what the SEC has. So they are moving to a neighborhood where everybody has a similar house, not where there's two mansions in an average neighborhood everywhere else around it. They want to be on Mansion Row and not the two houses that stick out like sore thumbs. And so they are going to a neighborhood where it's more like what they want to be and what they are accustomed to and what they feel they deserve. And you know what? You can't fault either of them for that in any way, shape, or form. That decision, I don't think there's any podcast that needs to be done about it or any feature. It's simple as day. I mean, it's simple why they moved, and nobody can fault them for it. You can fault the manner. You can fault like some of the parting shots. You can take issue with those types of things, but the decision itself, really, if you were in their position, it is an absolute no-brainer of a decision, and everybody else would have done the same thing.
And the thing is we're talking about 6 schools here, right? We're talking about Texas and OU. Florida State and Clemson have now started to dip their toe into this water a little bit, and USC and UCLA. And if it was about winning, then UCLA in football, winning in football, then UCLA with those 5 schools belongs nowhere near that conversation at all. They have been mediocre at best for 25 years. They have not won a conference title since 1997. So it's not about winning when it comes to UCLA. For UCLA, it just happens to be that the last 2 letters of their name. That's what that's about. So again, let's not get it twisted that in somehow that there's honor among this thing when it comes to, well, we haven't won, so we don't deserve this. No, that's not what it's about. And winning is cyclical. Everybody's had bad stretches.
How would you like to have a recorded conversation with the USC if they contacted UCLA, or how that went about, kind of like the Texas OU one, how that went about? Hey, by the way, we're going to call the Big Ten and see if they're interested in us. And how long would it take UCLA to go, just tell us the final results, right? With all due respect to them. Tell us the final results. All right, Mack Rhodes again just around the corner with us on 365 Sports. There was one other story in college sports earlier today in college football. 4 former assistant coaches, former staffers who worked under Jeremy Pruitt at Tennessee have accepted the show cause penalties. Brian Niedermeyer, linebackers coach, another linebackers coach, Shelton Felton, player personnel director Drew Hughes, and also student assistant Michael Magnus. They all have been imposed with show cause penalties. Pruitt, no, but those 4, yes. And the agreement received preliminary approval from a committee on infractions. Tennessee and other individuals named in the case have contested either violations, certain penalties, or both. In a statement after the negotiated resolutions for the 4 ex-staffers were announced, Tennessee cited its cooperation with the NCAA during the investigation. Involvement in violations, including unethical conduct, failing to cooperate with investigators, and on and on and on. And so those 4 will begin to serve their penalties immediately without having to wait for the final ruling from the Division I Committee on Infractions. The show cause, Kelvin Sampson have one of those? Did Bruce Pearl have one of those? I know there's been, I like both of them a lot as far as what they do with what they, I think that they had something. Not sure exactly how that went about it. Craig's Googling that now feverishly, but I think Bruce Pearl had to deal with a little bit of that. Hell of a basketball coach, done a great job with all.
5-year show cause 10 years ago. Who was the other person you asked about?
Kelvin Sampson.
I mean, that's who got a show cause like 10 years ago.
Yep.
Who was the other person that you asked about?
Bruce Pearl.
Bruce Pearl. I mean, I don't. Off the top of my head, I didn't know if that was the case, but he got a 3-year show cause penalty.
Yep.
So
that's what I thought. All right, 4:09 is the time. 365 Sports. Appreciate a lot of you again on the chat room that keep on rolling along. And let's see here. Is there any chance Miami gets left behind by either the SEC or the Big Ten? That's from Patrick.
I don't think so. I mean, again, Miami is a small private school, so while they've become notable because of what they did in the 80s and 90s and 2001 in football, they're still not a massive school, so they maybe don't have as much weight when it comes to that as some of the other schools that would move, but they are a brand, and they are in a city that is a brand city. So I don't think so. Ultimately, I think Miami would be included in the dance partner, especially if Mario Cristobal can make them relevant again to where, hey, look, the television numbers are great for them when they're really good. But, I would say that they'd have a slight chance of getting left out if they continue to dwell in mediocrity. But ultimately, again, it's about brands, and they're a brand. I mean, the 2001 team was arguably the greatest one of all time. People still talk about it. So,
yeah, I mean, I don't know what scenario this is falling under. I guess, future expansion once the ACC figures out what they're going to do. I mean, again, not really anything can happen right now given the length of that contract, although there was the cage rattling with Clemson and Florida State here recently that made that, a fresh story and at least a little bit more interesting than it had been otherwise when you just know, like, no, they're under contract, lock and key for forever. At least now, there's well-known discontent at least growing or forming, and that is notable because that could lead to a situation sooner rather than later where maybe there is a device to get the teams that can get out of there and into a new league. And if that were to happen, then yes, Miami is absolutely a part of it. I don't see, that's not even a question to me. That if you're going the biggest 32 brands in college football, we were doing that yesterday, are they in there? Absolutely, yes, they are. Are they in the top 28? Probably, yeah. I think, location, they've shown that they're going to spend money. The boosters are obviously thick in NIL as much as anybody else has been. And tradition and TV viewers and all of that, I think, all of that adds up to them being an ideal candidate. History, everything. I mean, I don't see a box that they don't check, quite honestly, other than are they good right now? And
the only one, and this doesn't really matter to TV, is the attendance, right? Isn't their attendance still kind of a struggle?
It's
still have a great stadium.
They're playing at the Dolphin Stadium. The attendance for sports in Miami is terrible.
Yeah,
just in general. So
it's a pro sports town.
Watch UCLA games
but
lately?
It's for everything. Yeah, so it's not. Yeah, and again, they also to say that they're also kind of on the same par as USC. USC and Miami are kind of the same thing. Is that they're smaller private schools that are in major metropolitan areas with incredible football histories. So, outside of just being caught up in the, you've got the wrong university president who doesn't want to push the right buttons, which they did for quite a long time. Now they have one that's, said, yeah, we got to loosen the purse strings and, get some new facilities in here and improve this. Then, I don't see any reason outside of that random scenario where someone comes in and be like, I would like Miami to be a school that's only about education, and this football team has to take a back seat. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
All right, when we come back, Mack Rhodes, Baylor's Director of Athletics. This is 365 Sports.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
What are you waiting for? Next year's New Year's resolution to lose weight, get fit, start working out? 3, 2, 1, go to Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness. If you really want to get in shape, get rid of weight or inches, you have to make a commitment to work out, and the excuses of not enough time, you're too tired or too busy. There's a special place that will change your life at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco, and they have a commitment to you too. With personal trainers Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alex Bosch, state-of-the-art Cybex equipment, new weights and spin bikes, clean and spacious locker rooms, each with a whirlpool and sauna, and a staff that will know your name when you walk through the front door. Elite tennis facilities and a great tennis pro in Britt Coleman. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness is a place you can call home, a place you can work out on your own or with 40-plus group exercise classes. It's time for you to get in shape, lose inches, get fit at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lake Shore Drive in Waco.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
Welcome back to 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Our weekly segment with Baylor Director of Athletics, Mack Rhodes, is brought to you by Edward Jones Investment Brokers, Ben Erlinson, Brad Wilson, Cam Heathcott, and Chuck Verno. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Baylor Director of Athletics, Mack Rhodes, usually every Tuesday. We'll have him here momentarily. Also, Scott Drew, coming off the win in Stillwater last night, will join us tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Baylor now up to number 7 overall. That was before the win in Stillwater. They have Iowa State to close out the regular season coming up on Saturday. Nikki Colvin will join us on Friday. We mentioned their win in Austin last night. Pretty good night. If you watch on 8 o'clock, ESPN, Baylor, Oklahoma State with a nice win, and now they get a break until Saturday to close out the year. The big Monday and the double headers and the Saturday-Monday turnarounds are great if you win. And even if you win Saturday, you turn around, you have someone coming down with a sledgehammer at times when you have your games on Monday night. Those 8 o'clock starts for me are a little bit late, but I could not. I had to watch. And that's, of course, our job as well. Yes.
I'll call Mack about it in 3 minutes.
Okay, we'll have Mack Rhodes here in just a little bit. Now, on the discussion of the Big 12 moving forward, what do you think is their next, what's the next thing Yormark does that we weren't expecting? Anything in particular? And obviously, we weren't expecting it. We don't know what it is right now.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything I'm not expecting, because I think it's been pretty clear from the beginning what his motives have been. It's been, let's get, a TV deal done. Let's get Texas and OU's situation settled. think the next thing will be figuring out expansion, but again, that could be 4 or 5 years from now. I would think the next big thing would be, let's see if we can figure out something for basketball that enhances that product a little bit more.
Yeah, I guess something basketball. I mean, I have no idea. That's why it would be a surprise, right? I mean, what can you really do until the Pac-12 signs a freaking
Not
TV
much,
deal?
yeah.
I mean,
Not much.
All this stuff we're talking about, like, how about the Pac-12 signs their TV deal, and then we can answer a lot of questions all at one single time, because then we'll know first we'll know where they're playing and on what network, and we'll know how that stacks up, and we'll know for what amount of money, and we'll know how that stacks up, and we'll know whether it's similar to the Big 12 and not enough of a reason to get cold feet about the future, or if it's drastically different, and the Big 12's in turn drastically different from the Big 10 and the SEC, and all of them have deals coming up again before the ACC. So, I mean, that'll be a true barometer. If the Big 12's making what in this new deal? Like 40-something? Is that what it is?
Well, it's kind of complicated.
Okay, like what's the measurement you would like to go with so that we can kind of just compare it?
I don't know the exact number.
Like just
38 million.
Okay, 38 million. Let's say they're making 38 million. I mean, if the Pac-12 is making 21 per school, I mean that's pretty significant. Like if we're talking $3 or $4 or $5 million, like that's one thing. But if we're talking double digits and all of a sudden we're talking closer to 20 than to 10, I don't know, guys. Like, I know we talk about, like, money being, basically burnable in college athletics because it seems like that's what they do with it half the time. They just burn right through it. But $10+ million is a significant amount of money to anybody. That's helping. Like, how much are you spending on all of the other sports that football and, to a lesser extent, men's basketball are helping prop up, politely saying it that way? I mean, that seems like a good chunk of that could go to helping your A&T and your tennis and your baseball and whoever else benefits from those things. I mean, that's not a chunk that solves every issue, but that's enough of one that I think that would be considered significant. To make $10+ million less than the Big 12, that means you're making how many tens of millions of dollars less than the Big 10? How many tens of millions of dollars less than the SEC here in the next few years? That's where it would be concerning, and that's why
here are some numbers.
We got to know what the number is.
Yeah. The average increase in media-only revenue per school will go from $22 million to $31.7 million with the new deal. Now, the $380 million, which is the total, is now divided 12 different ways, and that's why you get to that $31.7. The new deal, which currently stands the distribution at $42.6 million per school, will most likely get up close to $50. If you're talking about when you have the NCAA tournament, the bowl revenue, the new college football revenue, which will increase, and on top of that, the deals you have with ESPN and Fox.
Okay, so if they get 40-something million when all is said and done, then is that enough to just uproot everything and change everything? I don't know that it is. I'm also not one of these administrators. But if we're talking like $15, $20 million, I mean, guys, that's not chump change.
Well,
I
that's
don't
what
care.
Florida State's talking about, $25 million right now.
Exactly right. And, and so that's where, we can speculate all we want. I know that's part of the fun, but, I mean, that will be the tell. The tell will be, and not only that, but the double whammy of if you are sitting there and you're George Kliavkoff and you say, all right, Oregon and Washington and Utah and Cal and everybody else, you're not only going to be making like $15 million less, but you're also going to be seen by how many fewer people based on that. Like that's the questions that the lack of a deal don't allow us to know at this point in time. And I feel like those two are pretty important pieces of information in that conversation.
We're now joined by Baylor's Director of Athletics, Mack Rhodes, with us on Tuesdays on 365 Sports. Did you know last week that when you were on with us with some of the comments about the Pac-12 and being available or being ready or what's best for Baylor in the Big 12 kind of spread throughout the country? And in some cases, some people took it as if you were being a proponent of raiding the Pac-12.
No, I had no idea, and I don't really pay attention to much of that. You asked me a question, and I answered it truthfully,
Mm-hmm.
and so we move on. And
I would tell you, and I thought I was, maybe I wasn't, was intentional about, I don't think any of us are trying to dismantle the Pac-12. If there's opportunity, and they whenever their TV media deal comes to fruition, and in those institutions, decide that it's not good for them, then the Big 12 will be ready, and that's probably as simple as I can say it. And it doesn't surprise me that it spread, because people like news, and plus everybody knows you guys and everybody listens to y'all, so didn't surprise me.
By the way, Mack, and we appreciate your transparency and the way you are, and we discussed that as well. There were some that just took headlines rather than the actual quotes. The quotes were in the stories, and a lot of people did a great job of using the exact quotes. If you don't mind me following up with this, when you're on the phone with Yormark or Brett Yormark or other ADs, how much current time is even discussing anything else outside of what you have right now? For example, do you even have, well, hey, what have you heard about this and that? Or is that even on the radar with most of your discussions?
I would just say most of our conversations are about, the 14 for 1 year, then the 12. It's primarily, I would say, about conference operations and particularly marketing and being partners with both ESPN and Fox. Are there times when there's conversation about conference membership? Yeah, and it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. Commissioner Yormark has talked about it publicly, and in a variety of different ways. But those that want to believe that we're trying to dismantle the Pac-12, they can believe that, but that's not what we're trying to do. But we're also going to be ready, and shame on us, we wouldn't be doing our jobs if we weren't ready. If there's an opportunity.
Yeah, Mack, everybody has to be ready for every possible contingency that could happen all the time. I mean, the last thing you want to do is get caught flat-footed again, because the Big 12 has been through that before, and obviously would never want to be in that spot again. Mack, I know that this is maybe a little bit optimistic or pie in the sky, but would it not be better if the leaders of college football discussed these issues a tad more openly, so that everything doesn't feel so cloak and dagger?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think I think there's been more communication. At least that's my sense. That's my opinion, that there's been more communication lately amongst certainly amongst the Autonomy 5, Power 5 commissioners. Now, some of it, or a lot of it, maybe has been driven by the CFP and playoffs, but I also think there's beginning to have conversations between the Power 5 commissioners and the NCAA as we think about look forward in terms of the future of college athletics. And Paul, it's going to require more of that, more acting collectively rather than independently. And but I do think that it's shifting that way, and I think it's good news.
Mack, I guess kind of staying on the same topic, did you have any thoughts, or did it perk your interest at all when you heard some of the comments coming from Florida State and Clemson reps last few days about unequal revenue sharing in the ACC, and not just bringing it up to donors and alumni, but publicly out there, but also putting a sense of urgency on it. Just from a college sports industry standpoint, I ask you that question, not so much the Big 12 and that whole thing, but was that on your radar at all?
Certainly there have been murmurs about it. I didn't expect it to become public like it did. And again, let me just be really clear this time around as well. Not wanting, the ACC to explode or not exist. These are hard problems. They're complicated problems. And, the ACC's TV media deal has been well documented. And what's interesting, the annual amount of that deal is pretty healthy. It's just, the number of schools you're dividing it upon, but, they also have a network as well. And so, Commissioner Phillips, I've known him. We kind of grew up somewhat in this business, and I've got great respect for him. He's got a really hard job, but I think, and I just know that he will absolutely, handle it to the very, very best of his ability, and certainly wish the ACC and those member schools, the best in terms of how they navigate, their future.
Mack, if some schools showed interest in the Big 12 in the future, is there any way, after all of the Big 12 and what you've been through, is there any way that unequal revenue sharing would work?
Man, that is a fascinating, that is a great question. My gut reaction is absolutely not. And, I would probably want to spend a little bit more time maybe thinking about it. Is there a circumstance or two where, it would be accepted by other members? I think it would have to be, really unique and probably dire circumstances for that. But I think that's really, really hard. And as I look to the future of the Big 12 and the 12 member institutions, I don't see a scenario where that can happen, and nor should it happen.
Baylor Director of Athletics Mack Rhodes with us on 365 Sports. Paul?
So, Mack, do you get, when you hear these things around, does it like bubble in your stomach? I mean, because all these things are constantly going on, does it add to the stress level just knowing that even though you have to, lead your own institution and do all of those things and worry about your conference, that you're kind of, in the best days in the bubble of only able to have to focus on your things?
Yeah. I try not to let any of that, the noise, the distraction, impact me or impact how we make decisions. And so, again, trying not to get on any roller coaster. And, at the end of the day, my greatest responsibility is to this institution, is to Baylor University, and especially to our young people, to our student athletes, and to our staff. And that's where my focus is. And until someone tells me otherwise, until God calls me to do something differently, then that's the way we're going to manage and lead here at Baylor. And closely behind that is obviously, for our future is conference and making sure that we have stability. But yeah, I'm going to make decisions. We're going to make decisions that are best for Baylor and again, especially our young people.
Mack, did you lose your voice yelling at the end of last night's game in Stillwater as Baylor was trying to hold on, or because of what happened in Austin with when the women's basketball team, winning a game that a lot of people didn't see coming?
Yeah, probably both. Obviously really excited and, watching the women down in Austin and being able to compete. UT gets within, I think, 2 in the third quarter, and we were able to overcome and, finish out really, really strong. And, just proud of that team and, certainly proud of Nikki and the way she's leading that program and again, staying focused on the team, on our student athletes. And, I think we've got, again, a great future, great promise there with that program. We've played 11 games against top 25 opponents, and that was our 5th win, which I think is most among Big 12 schools. And so, really happy for them. In fact, I was ecstatic for them. And then, my goodness, I was breathing. My heart rate was probably at about 48, 50, all the way up until the last 2 minutes of the Oklahoma State game, and then all of a sudden it climbed pretty quickly. So glad we were able to finish that one out and escape Stillwater with a win, and looking forward to our two remaining games for both men and women's basketball.
Go ahead, Paul.
Can you describe, just from your perspective, the physical and mental drain that a Big Monday turnaround is in this league in the Big 12?
Yeah, I think it's a bigger pool than any other conference because of the physicality of games. And when you only have a day, and maybe a half to fully recover and physically, and then mentally be prepared to go to battle, because these are all battles again. It's hard, and got great admiration for our student athletes. I've got great admiration for our staff. The way you've got to the moment your game ends, whether women's versus Texas Tech or it's men versus UT, you got to boom, flip the switch immediately and think about moving forward and recovery and game plan and all of that, and be ready to go. And so it's hard. This is a really tough league to do that, both in men and women's basketball.
How difficult is it to have 14 events on your campus this weekend? 14 going on basically all within a matter of hours, if not at the same time. How stretched is your athletic department?
It's stretched, and we have an amazing team, amazing event management facilities team, led by Henry Howard, and a great group of people that honestly, they work tirelessly, and they never really get the credit that they deserve. But as you mentioned, this Baylor Bold weekend, 14 events and prizes, a block party outside the Baylor ballpark Saturday from 1 to 5. Can't wait to see all of the families out there, and the basketball games, all of it. And it should be a great weekend. And again, our staff is amazing, and just grateful for all of the hard work that they put in. And I think what's best is they never look for or ask for recognition. Now, shame on us if we don't, but they do what they do because they love what they do, and they do it for our student athletes.
I have a question about Brigham Young. Do they have their own network?
So there is BYU television, and I really, I certainly wouldn't want to provide any misinformation. I don't know what they do in terms of televising anything athletically. I do know that there's been no special accommodations made for BYU or BYU television as we think about their membership and our TV partners. Right? It's going to be for them. It's going to be ESPN. It's going to be Fox and all of the different platforms.
Yeah, Mack, actually, and this was before you were at Baylor. You might have still been, I don't even know, before Missouri. I don't know, but
Houston,
Baylor,
Akron.
Yeah, Baylor played BYU on BYU TV, and my friends and I had to go to Buffalo Wild Wings to watch it because none of us had it, but it was a kind of a one-off thing. And even there was a guy named Brett here in local media who was a BYU grad and said, yeah, this is something they're just trying out because, let's see if we can get a game or so on here. And because it wouldn't have been on television anyway, Baylor was like, yeah, sure, whatever, put it on BYU TV. We don't care. But I don't think that's something that they've made a long-term strategy of theirs.
Yeah, no. Our third tier rights, this happened, I can't even remember now, maybe 3 years ago. But, 8 of the 10, we all decided that we were, handing over our third tier rights to, at that time, to ESPN and, the new TV deal, right? ESPN, Fox, own all of the TV rights.
Mack, I got it's just off the top of my head. What is the earliest in the morning you have ever had a coach, without saying their name, call you just to discuss something?
Well, I can remember, at least one time vividly, 4:30 a.m. So that's probably the earliest, and it wasn't necessarily because we had any type of conduct issue. It was just they wanted to have a conversation and thought I might be up.
So do you always have your phone on ring? Because I'm calling at 4:31.
I do. If I see your name, you can bet I'm not hitting the green button.
Hey, man, get some lozenges, man, and good luck with your voice. We'll see you. We'll see you the rest of the week with all that's going on this weekend. Thank you very much for your time and transparency.
All right. Appreciate you all.
Mack Rhodes, Director of Athletics. Who was it?
Oh,
Matt Rule.
Look, I
can track this down.
Yeah, I can tell you. Matt Rule would not surprise me because he is a very early riser.
Yeah.
Or Scott Drew, who is a very late.
Well, the other day,
who was it?
Jacobs said he calls, but about 1:30 he seals it off.
Yeah.
But then he will sleep a little bit later than the assistants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I would think Matt Rule.
I just say him because I feel like, I don't know how much of an early riser he is necessarily, but it just seems like he would, if something is important, it's 4:30, but I need to talk to you about this right now, kind of a thing. And surely back then there were plenty of conversations that you can imagine, we need to talk about this right now and not, 3 hours from now, even though it probably could have been handled the same. But I don't know. I just get the feeling that Matt Rule would pop off a phone call then. But, it could be
Aranda gets up
anybody.
Incredibly early.
Yeah.
Comes to the office, and he has this book that's on his desk. It's the finest little print of things he wants to get done that day or the day before, the next day. He gets up awfully early. The good news is it wasn't because of some sort of an issue with conduct. I'm sure ADs have to take those. Well, they do take those calls because it could happen. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's so Matt Rule might not even be right because I feel like that we heard a lot of the time, like when he was around, that they were having to talk a lot because there was a lot to have to deal with and a lot to manage and
also
sort through
the interest that was sometimes about one person looking at another job.
Yeah, I mean, not even so much that, but the situation they both walked into.
Oh, yeah.
They had a lot to talk about and figure out. And, especially early on when you're, having to battle terrible headlines day after day, that aren't necessarily even about you in particular or your staff or this era. It's what was before. I just feel like that led to a lot of having to correct things or having to shoot things down or having to be aware of certain things that are being talked about and how to handle that. And so, I just feel like there's PR-wise, I feel like there's a lot more PR to have to handle when he got the job. And so I could see him just in general making those phone calls, but certainly in that era with all they were facing, I could definitely see that. But, it could be – I mean, for all we know, maybe we're not giving enough credit to, Michelle Leonard, the soccer coach, or Nikki Collin. Maybe she's a early, late phone caller. We don't know. But.
By the way, I should have brought up, and I didn't because there's 14 events. You can't mention them all, but softball obviously having a great run.
Yeah.
Craig does a good, bad, and ugly every weekend to kind of summarize the weekend, and obviously another great weekend for them. They're 14-1. And having a hell of a start to their season, especially after that win a week ago against Oklahoma.
But softball has what you kind of need right now. You need three superstars, or studs, and they've got a pitcher who is fantastic.
Yeah.
They've got
a pitcher who has now thrown both a perfect game and a no-hitter. In the last 2 weeks.
A bopper where at any moment the ball could go over the wall because. 3-0 in a softball game with a pitcher like they have might as well be 13-3 with a lesser pitcher. And they've got one or two, but definitely a fielder that can kind of get to everything. So they've got that covered. If everyone else is good, and then you have those three, you can really make a run. And so if you have some depth behind and other things, they've got that going on right now with Baylor softball.
All right, thank you to Mack. 445, Craig Smoak off the radar is next. This is 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental, Robinson, Texas. That's Dr. Steve Childress. He's my dentist. I'm proud to say that. He's also a great friend. We talk about many things, sports. He might ask about Baylor. Depends on what season that we're in, whether it's basketball, football, whatever. But the bottom line, he cares about what I'm doing with my dental work, and he has finally scared me straight in a lot of different ways, in a positive way, about making sure that I take care of my dental work. As you get older, there are things that change. I tell you about that when it comes to testosterone levels or aches and pains. And the same thing with your dental work. Even if you have taken care of everything and gone to the hygienist and had your teeth cleaned and always done what you're supposed to do, and I've learned it the hard way. He is fantastic. He has helped me when I've had pain that was unforeseen, and then also with just making sure that I'm always ahead of the curve when it comes to what else I need to do to play catch up with my dental work. It's in Robinson, Texas, an incredible staff. When you have an appointment, you're not going to just set up the appointment and then you happen to show up. They're going to remind you, not to be annoying, they're going to remind you in every way possible that your appointment is in 3 days, in 2 days, tomorrow, this morning, this afternoon. It is phenomenal. A well-oiled machine of what they have with their dentist, tech specialist, and everything else in between, hygienist and staff at Stonewood Dental in Robinson, Texas.
Y'all listen up. Let me tell you something about group meals from Rudy's Barbecue. It's got all you need for all the folks you gotta feed, smoked meat, sides, and more. There's everything down to the tablecloth, just like the one that you see at the store. At a bridal shower, it's better than flowers. And a long distance meeting, it'll pass the hours. It'll feed all the cousins at a family function. It's better than potluck at a church luncheon. Next time you need to feed 10 or more, call and order a Rudy's group meal.
Next in line. Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. It's time for Craig Smoak's Off the Radar. Brought to you by Pickup Outfitters. Since 1997, we've been outfitting trucks, SUVs, and vans at 220 Lake Air Drive or createacommotion.com.
All right, welcome back to 365 Sports. A little stop down here, as we do on Tuesdays and Thursdays at around 4:45-ish or so, taking a look at some stories outside our normal scope of college football, which we hammer home, and the Dallas Cowboys, and sometimes there will be a sprinkling of related stories to those sports, but for the most part, just an opportunity to get away from expansion talk or Zeke Elliott or Dak Prescott's contract, what have you, and just have a little grab bag of various things that are out there. And one of those things that is out there right now, and this is not so much a story I'm presenting, but Paul, I was just very curious because we haven't touched on this in a little while, and we are a month out from Major League Baseball season now at this point, but what have been your thoughts, or what have you seen as far as these pitch clock rules, and what have been your takes on what we've seen so far?
I have a dichotomous view of it.
Have you seen this, by the way?
What? Yeah, I have.
Okay, the pandemonium that's being created with these pitch clock rules.
You know what's giving me? Anxiety.
Well,
yeah. Part of me likes it,
yeah,
but it's giving me anxiety.
Okay, so there's the traditionalist in me that is, kind of in my brain of like, well, it's baseball. Nobody's supposed to be in a hurry. But there's also the baseball fan in me that knows that if you don't adapt, you'll die. And you're facing a younger generation that's playing less and less baseball. You're facing, a shrinking, our Jack and Emery aren't really in this because they're younger, but Garrett, you, me, and Smokey all grew up where baseball was 1 or 1A of the sports that we were pushed into.
Pro sports, yeah.
It's like, as a little kid. So that's also where you get some of your love for that. And then there's also 1 or 1A of the pro sports that were covered. I mean, it was the NFL and Major League Baseball were kind of, when it wasn't baseball season, it was the NFL season. And then, you got some NBA stuff. And because Michael Jordan made that bigger, then it got, kind of 3 seasons. But I think they've got to adapt. And I do like it because I do think some of these things are silly, that you can throw it at first base a million times for no reason other than for spite, that you can call timeout just to mess with the pitcher's head. You can do the Josh Beckett thing where you just stand there forever on the mound waiting to decide that you've already going to throw a fastball that you knew when you got there. So they've got to speed those things up. Are they taking away
gamesmanship?
I think they're adding a different level of gamesmanship.
I
think that they're morphing it because, yes, but sometimes those things can get kind of stupid.
Right. Let me ask you this. If you're on first and you're going to steal a base, or you think so you can, how many times can you throw over there?
I don't know the exact rules.
Twice?
I have not memorized them.
Yeah, I think it's
so
twice.
If you're a guy that's going to steal a base and you know he's thrown over there twice, why wouldn't you not take off quickly if he can't throw a third
Well, that's
time?
also good because now maybe we'll get more stolen bases. It's going to –
Leader last year had 41 steals. That's
I also, as someone who – thinks it's kind of silly. The only rule I don't like is banning the shift. And the reason I don't like it is because a pitcher can't make the same adjustment. If a left-handed pitcher can't hit the inside corner on a right-handed pitcher, there's not a rule he can do. Like the catcher can't move around to a spot and put his glove in front of the bat or something like that to make sure it does. That's not going to happen. But, a left-handed guy who can't hit the ball down the third baseline, they're going to make the rule okay for him. Now, I get you have to do that. They're doing that to increase the offense and make that better. But, yeah, I'm fine with the pitch clock. I don't think it will affect many games in the regular season because by the time the regular season comes around, players will be kind of used to it and be like, I better not mess around here and get a third strike on me for no reason.
Yeah, and I just looked up there's a lot to digest. They're trying out a lot of new things, like bigger bases, the throws over. Yeah, I think you get two, for what I just read correctly, 2 throws over to first, but if you throw it a third time, there's a failed attempt and the runner advances an extra base. But this was something that was very much at the forefront just a couple of days ago, just the new rules when you had the Red Sox and the Braves playing, and it was the bottom of the 9th, the bases loaded in a tie game, full count. It's like what you dream of when you're playing, your hero scenario in your head as a little kid growing up that wants to be a Major League Baseball player, where you're playing, the video game and you want to walk off grand slam type of scenario. But Cal Conley of the Braves did not get set in the batter's box with the 8 seconds left on the pitch clock, and it was called an automatic strike, and that ended the at-bat, and that ended the inning, and that ended the game. And so it was just a weird scenario that caught a little bit of fire on social media because it's going to take some getting used to this new pace and not, and I think it was even like is John Boy or somebody like that put together a side-by-side of a recent game versus another game under the old rules. And it was like, just compare. And I think like half the inning went by with the new rules before like 3 pitches were thrown in the old format. So, it's been very interesting to see those, and that's why I was curious to get Paul's takes on that. But the new pitch clock it's still getting ironed out, I think is fair to say. It's not a finished product by any means, but I am intrigued, and I understand basically the argument has now become, have we made chess checkers and taken all of the nuance and the feel of the game and those little tiny details that maybe not everybody always picks up on or cares so much about, but make baseball the unique science of baseball that it is. I think traditionalists are afraid that that's going to the wayside due to people just wanting faster games.
Designated hitter, interleague games. There's a lot of things more playoff teams. There's a lot of things that have changed. They have to make sure that they somehow try to target the younger audience. That's the future, and yet make sure that they keep the younger audience because they're so distracted with so much in front of them. I think you can come up with a happy medium, and I don't know if they will, but I watched the other day. Who was it? Who's the great pitcher for Washington or the Mets?
Max Scherzer loves it.
He said it empowers the pitcher. You're in total control, which, maybe that's what they need. I don't know.
Yeah, it remains to be seen how well that will work in the regular season, but it's been a treat to see people trying to get used to it in spring training.
The beat writers love it.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. I mean, with all the time that they spend, covering baseball season, 162 press boxes to sit in and 3.5, 4-hour games on a near nightly basis, I would imagine those 2.5-hour games go by like a breeze. But then at the same time, it's kind of like the people who argue against the new rules in college football that are be floated out there. Like, why do you want less? Like, there's some people, they want the 5-hour baseball game because they want to watch baseball. They don't care that it's taking 5 hours or the pitcher's taking 30 seconds in between pitches. They don't want 2.5-hour baseball where it's gone in the blink of an eye. So it's just really eye of the beholder.
Yeah. I'm just happy that when I was a young board op running Rangers games at 11:30 at night when they're in an extra inning tilt with the Mariners that was 11 to 11, and I was yelling into the void, "Can you make this shorter?" That somebody heard it.
Well, now they have the guy on second base, and there's that. That's another rule that I don't know if I'll ever get used to that.
All right, where are we on time here?
We're good.
You're okay. You got like 30 seconds.
Okay. I want to mention over the weekend, a big baseball contract signed with baseball. Manny Machado. He had said that he was going to opt out of the final 5 years of his deal. He had said that late last week. Well, it only took about 36, 48 hours before he had ironed his future out, reportedly agreeing to an 11-year, $350 million contract extension with the Padres. That came over the weekend, just 30 years old, no opt-outs in the new deal, and a no-trade clause as well. So the new contract puts him fourth largest deal in MLB history. Do you guys have any idea of who the top three are at this point, biggest deals in MLB history?
Trout
is number one, $426.5 million. It's also what Garrett gets. It's
Harper?
No, not more than Machado.
Okay.
You like the number two player a lot. He played
Mookie
for your
Betts.
team. Yeah.
Betts.
$365 million, about a $60 million fall off from Trout's total number, but Mookie Betts, the second highest contract. That's $15 million more total than Machado at 4. Number 3 spot, Aaron Judge.
Okay.
$360 million. So Trout, Betts, Judge, and now Machado. Those are the top 4 deals in baseball.
If you have Mookie Betts, if you're a franchise that has Mookie Betts,
I mean,
a great
lifetime
player, right?
contract, right?
Why? If you have him, Paul, why would you ever, if you have him,
can't imagine the scenario.
Why would you ever let him go?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll be 90 years old and have one thought in my head.
Did he win a World Series the first year he was in L.A., or was it?
They won in the second year he was in L.A.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, maybe it was the first.
All right, okay.
But yeah, I will, I'll have one thought in my head, as an old man in a home, and they'll say, "How you doing this morning, Mr. Catalina?" I'll be like, "I miss Mookie Betts."
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, well,
so good for Manny.
Yeah, Manny Machado, great player. Padres have been a fun organization to follow as of late, with former Ranger front office guy doing a lot of the wheeling and dealing there. All right, a couple of other notes here. XFL, drop in the ratings for XFL in week number 2. Did you guys watch any more, any less? I'm guessing didn't watch much of it.
Did not see it this week.
Yeah, there were some bad field conditions, in particular in the DC game, and that was unfortunate because they were not playing at just the most ideal of places in comparison to what you're accustomed to watching, football on television. It looks lesser than what you're used to, if that makes sense. And so I think that kind of nicks the product a little bit, because people see this field condition and they're just like, what is this kind of low rent? What's The Rock doing? You know what I mean? But I don't know. There seems to be a crowd that's into it, but certainly not enough to keep week 1 ratings as high as they were. A big drop in week number 2, averaging just 665,000 viewers on ESPN, ESPN2, and FX. That was down 50% from week number 1, 68% from week 2 of the XFL 2.0 3 years ago, when in XFL 2.0's week 2, they drew a little over 2 million viewers. Now, there is one caveat, and that is that they were not on the major networks for those games. So there's going to be a little bit of a dip regardless, but this is also the first week in league history which no game was able to pull in more than 1 million viewers. So that happened, obviously with some of the TV slots, but the highest rated game, 781,000 for San Antonio and Orlando. That was on ESPN on Sunday afternoon. So, yeah, a 50% decline. That also compared to the XFL's previous incarnation was the highest drop they've had as well. They had a pretty significant drop for XFL 2.0 from week 1 to week 2, but that was a drop of like 3 million to 2 million. This is a drop below a million. So just something to mention and something to keep in mind with this league as they try to get off their feet. But it's going to be a tough task, man. As much as this country loves football, we love specific football. We love the NFL and we love college football. And we love high school football in certain places as well to a large degree. But no matter what the league is called or how the format is or what cities are involved, it's just hard to get people to fully invest in, an alternative league. And so we'll see. That's not a doomsday, week 2 for them by any means, but it's obviously not the numbers that you would like to see. And I don't know if you guys saw the big to-do about Live Golf and their ratings coming over the weekend, but not the best of look. Now, this was a league obviously that had, a difficult time just getting the exposure to begin with. The Pac-12 is learning that right now. There's only so many spots on TV, but Live Golf debuting on the CW, not very good numbers. An average of 288,500 viewers, or a 0.18 household rating on both Saturday and Sunday, compared to the PGA Tour event also this weekend. That drew just under 2 million viewers. So just under 2 million versus 288,000. Now, obviously, there's different networks, and it's the CW versus the Golf Channel. But, yeah, not the most highly rated debut for Live Golf.
Well, they did get pummeled by America's Funniest Animals and Masters of Illusion. But if you're
a great Coulier still hosting,
do people still? Those things are popular, right?
Yeah.
I haven't watched one of those shows in a decade.
But if you're measuring it against Masters of Illusion, and then what are we even doing? No, but first of all, the Saudi government doesn't care, and I don't know how much currently the CW worries about it that much, because that is at least and look, we're on the CW locally here, 10:30 every night, but nationally, the way that that network was bought from Warner's was essentially for nothing, as they just assumed all the debt, and they've canceled a lot of the original programming on it, or they're not going to do anything after this year and move forward with kind of a different vision for it. So I believe Nexstar is the company that bought it, the CW. So I don't think they're really worried about that right now. But still, I just think that, Live, as far as people watching it, you're not really going to get, people like Smoak, dyed-in-the-wool golf fans, because what's it for? All
right, I will watch on the weekends as the afternoon, depending on if I've played or not or what I'm doing. I'm going to watch the last part of each round, even on the weekdays. If depends on the time. I haven't watched Live. It's not because I'm mad at anybody. The new series that is on Netflix has actually humanized some guys that otherwise maybe you don't like.
Full swing is what you're
Full
talking
swing.
about.
Yeah, absolutely. I've now gone through, I think, 7 of the 9 episodes, maybe 8.
You like it?
I love
clearly,
it.
I guess.
I love it, yeah. and I've done that in like less than a week. But it's humanized even some people that maybe you otherwise don't like, whether you're on one side of the aisle or not, like Ian Poulter. It really is sad to watch how mentally a mashed potato right now that Brooks Koepka's been on the golf course, but it humanizes people that otherwise maybe you don't like or are upset with. And I have not had an interest, though, in watching Live. I have not clicked to the CW. I have not looked it up. I don't look at the leaderboard. I will at some point.
Yeah, it's just notable. I mentioned sports ratings and certain events, and that was one of those coming out of this weekend that obviously tells a little bit of a tale. But do you have any idea who won the tournament in Mayakoba?
Yes, I do
Charles
know that.
Howell III
Charles Howell, yep.
Did win the title or win the trophy there at the Mayakoba Live event. So, yeah, not the best debut on the CW. I know at some point, I just want to make mention of this so it's a reminder that we will talk about at some point, but the Byron Jones story, I just feel like that's a bit too heavy.
Yeah, let's do that another time.
Too big to discuss in this particular segment, but I'll leave you with just a couple more notes here. For the NBA fans out there, obviously the trade deadline was hot and heavy. One of the big moves that was made was Kevin Durant leaving Brooklyn to go join the Phoenix Suns, and now we know he's officially going to make his debut with Phoenix on Wednesday. He has not played in over a month, so it's been a little while since we've seen Kevin Durant, and we haven't seen him at all in the Suns uniform outside of photo ops, so he will debut tomorrow night against the Charlotte Hornets. And finally, former Colts star Fred Miller passing away today late last night, as a matter of fact, at age 82, star defensive end for the Colts in the late 1960s. He apparently passed away on Sunday. Was LSU Tiger for Garrett over there, 7th rounder back in the 1962 NFL Draft, Pro Bowler, 3 seasons from 67 to 69. And Jim Irsay tweeting out, rest in peace, Fred Miller, 10-year starting DT of the Baltimore Colts, a 3-time Pro Bowl selection. And then I had a picture of just the more rugged era of the NFL, to be certain. But Fred Miller passing away at age 82, member of the 68 title team. And just a guy who obviously commanded a lot of respect. And do you have an anecdote or anything on Fred Miller? You kind of looked this way when I initially mentioned that. No, it's just
I remember Super Bowls, the first ones, more than I do the most recent ones. I remember a few plays, and obviously the one this past, I guess, a couple of 2 or 3 weeks ago.
I would hope so.
The Colts were a dominant team who were shocked by Joe Namath and the Jets, and then won by beating Dallas when they had the field goal. I think Jim O'Brien kicked the field goal, but they were, big, nasty, physical team, and Fred Miller, I do remember that. I've got one to add to the list, Craig and Paul. Remember Cam Martin?
From Auburn, yeah.
Cam Martin, who played, I think, at Port Arthur Memorial.
Yeah, he did.
Running back who we loved the guy. We talked to him a couple of times. He was kind of like one of the godfathers of that class in 2000 and, I think 15? Would have been 15, whatever it was.
No, the 2016 class.
Yeah, that was broken up when Art Briles was fired and everybody asked for the release, and some were poached. I just saw this note. He is going to become the new running backs coach at UCF. He's been at Texas State. He played at Auburn, and so he joins Gus Malzahn's staff.
I'm
pretty sure for Gus Malzahn when he was at Auburn.
I'm pretty sure, didn't he just join that Texas State staff because he came over with GJ?
Yeah.
He was at Inquired Word, I believe, before, and so he came over with GJ. So I don't know if he even coached a single moment, really, with Texas State. But that's a hell of a promotion for him and a good deal there. So he'll be in the Big 12 after all.
Didn't hurt Big 12 Texas recruiting for UCF, who's dipped their toes into the state a little bit. But that's a nice opportunity. We really like Cam Martin a lot. Great kid, fantastic interview. And ended up at Auburn among that class that was shredded signed in February of 16.
Can really learn a life lesson from Cam Martin in that don't get a tattoo until you're sure.
Yeah.
And even if you are, because he signed with them. He actually was signed at a Baylor tattoo. Not sure what he's done with that, but one of our favorites we interviewed along the year. All right, now, when we come back, in about 20 minutes, Hall of Fame columnist John McLean will join us. But a couple of more nuggets, dip in if we're ready to what is, by the way, going on in the chat room. What blanket on the Live thing? Charles Howell won over $40 million on the PGA Tour, but I think he won and is making as much money for that win that he may have won in his entire career on the PGA Tour because the money is so high.
Yeah, I saw a stat about that. Yeah, something like he made as much in that one tournament as he made, something like his whole career at the PGA. I mean, and that's the pull, right? I mean, what else besides the money is really the pull? I guess the schedule is something that's pointed out.
Less rounds. Less rounds.
But it's for the money. I mean, let's face it.
It's the money, security, even the caddies and everyone travel, all that.
Well, and guys like DeChambeau are mad because their ranking's been affected, but you play 18 less holes a weekend. Yeah. So there's not even it's not a fair.
I want my cake and I want to eat it too.
I mean, so you're playing
and they knew
less.
that beforehand.
Yeah.
And they're still getting to play in the majors, which that was on the table as maybe not going to happen. But as for now, they are. So.
And look, I totally, not to dive into the whole Live PGA thing, because I'm not passionate enough about it to care all that much about a debate over it. But I know that golf fans, certainly some have picked sides, some enjoy both, and to each their own as far as that goes. But yeah, I mean, it's life-changing money for some people, and that's understandable. And for other people, it's history and tradition and not wanting to just take money, and I get that too. So yeah, it's a weird little back and forth that golf's got going on right now. But yeah, I get why there's the appeal of some guys making the options that they are making the decisions they have.
I if you are anyone, you don't have to be a golf fan. Full Swing on Netflix. There are 9 episodes. I've watched either 7 or 8, and it has really opened my eyes to some of the decisions. I never was shocked at all when Ian Poulter decided he wanted to go to live. It made sense. And then watching the episode that included he and his family, it even made more sense. You can be upset with them or whatever. There's a few that I wish they wouldn't have because I liked watching them on the PGA Tour, but I'm not going to go follow them and watch them on the CW channel unless it just happens to pop up. Although at 10:30 weeknights on the CW, the greatest network of all time.
I say.
When it comes to Sports Tonight, thanks to Emery Winter and his magician as an editing phenom. This is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Bob Mock has been in the pizza business for a long, long time, worked for different companies, and now he has 5 stores in the Waco area. Marco's Pizza around the country has been growing very, very steadfastly and extremely, very impressively. He has 5 locations in Waco. There used to be none. Now there's 5. Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, Hewitt, and also in Robinson. Bob's also a huge sports fan. Love what he does. Always great to talk to him. Bump into him whenever I do at a Baylor event or elsewhere around the community. Marco's Pizza, go to online, marcos.com. You can order specific pizzas, and they have code words. If you order online, you can go pick up, delivery, and or, of course, you can, if you want, go by their location on the way home from work or another day. For example, the Marco's location that I called, went online, called, made the follow-up, and then picked it up, took it home for one of the weekend night dinner. It's Marco's Pizza. We like the pepperoni magnifico. We like the all-meat pizza. I like thin crust. I like the Chicago cut into squares. They have pizza bowls, sandwiches, soft drinks, and more. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
During the President's Day sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco, get a 2022 Ram 1500 Quad Cab with 0% for 72 months or Ram 1500 Crew Cab with 1.9% for 72 months on all trim levels, only while supplies last.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and 2-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Did not get on the air.
No, but and like you tried, but I'll give you credit. It's been a while.
It's been a while.
It's been
at any time I could go currently into a not paying attention to the up the hour outliners. By the way, Charles Howell, of course, I always remember him because he's from Augusta, Georgia. How it would have been so cool to see him win the Masters. He's won a handful of times. Pretty good player. Wanted to live this past weekend, and he also is an Oklahoma State University grad. And so, of course, that brings him into the Big 12.
I whiffed on that connection there, but I'm not up on golfer alums, golf,
No, I get it.
Alumni as much as I am a football or basketball or even baseball to a lesser extent. But, yeah, that's a good little connection there.
Turned pro in 2000. He's won 4 tournaments, 3 on the PGA Tour. His highest program and best finish at the Masters, his hometown, was in 2004. He finished tied for 13th.
I think we see this everywhere in life, in the world now. It's not just America, but, I do think that we kind of excuse a lot of things away because, like, oh, my God, it's a lot of money. And, like, I do think that there's like you said, there's a real human side to, well, I mean, am I going to turn down so much more money for what ultimately is less work, and it's guaranteed, and the PGA Tour has maybe some arcane practices. Yeah, I can completely understand people making that decision. I just think that at the end of the day, you really have to, I think the one that bothers me, and he's a guy I've always liked because we share an alma mater, is Brooks Koepka, but Brooks Koepka doesn't need the money, right? Like,
wait a minute. Oh, is that why you're mad at him? Or
I mean, like, it's just like I get.
If you have money, do you ever have too much?
I mean, but
I think these are conversations of people who don't have money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no. But like you never I get that you never have too much, but like if you have enough money, you can maybe make that decision of like, well, I don't like where this money's coming from. But then part of it is also like, man, it's just so much more, and this life is awesome, so I'll just not really ask enough questions.
All right. So again, it's called Full Swing on Netflix. If you have any curiosity about just golf in general, a great year for them to start this, by the way, with all that was going on. It has been really, really cool. You really get the back, like how they pick some of these. I don't know if they interviewed like 50 players, and then they said, okay, these are the ones we're going to use. For example, Pereira, who was on the verge of winning and then had the just absolute meltdown at the end. Same thing with Thigala. Meltdown on what was a great shot, and it's really good. I don't know how many players they actually interviewed and expected to feature, but there have been some phenomenals. And the Brooks Koepka and Mito Pereira, Kim, you're right. The Brooks Koepka segment, it may not humanize him for a lot of people, but as I've gotten more mellow and older, it humanized it a little bit for me. He is a marshmallow right now and was as confident as anybody and dominated with the 4 majors over a short amount of time. Even makes, if you don't like, you're mad at Rory because he's anti-live or whatever, very much so of what he deals with. And then, of course, won the world, the championship at the end of last year in beating Scheffler. All right, so there's that. A lot of you, don't forget now, Charles Howell won 4 times. Yeah, absolutely. Barry Crawford, I can't fault guys making money on Live any more than I can fault guys making money in the XFL.
Well, look, the XFL's money comes from The Rock and his company, not a government that was partially responsible for 9/11. I mean, there's a little bit of a difference in The Rock and the Saudi government, and people are not making a lot of money in the XFL. The money between Live and the XFL is so outside the realm. The XFL is a chance for guys to maybe make it back up, but you're comparing working at McDonald's to being the CEO of a corporation. They're not even a close comparison.
I have no idea what the salaries are. 60,000?
Yeah.
And I don't. Here's from Kevin Seifert on ESPN. The average salary, I think I saw where it's going to be around $60,000 a player.
Yeah, so you're making, a nice mid-range living for a normal person in the XFL, but you're not making life-changing money, like generational wealth. That's not even close to a fair comparison.
Minimum salary for an NFL player on an active roster is $750,000. Although there are some bonus monies and opportunities, incentives for the XFL that might add to that 60, maybe another $15,000 or $20,000 a year. All right, I did not know about the Live ratings. I did not see that number. I just saw a number that said that they were a little bit disappointed in that. But it's the first time they've ever been on, and we'll see what happens with that. All right, when we come back, we'll have John McLean, Hall of Fame columnist. Let's see, Kim Coulter. And this has been said before, a lot more to the PGA Tour finances than people have yet to learn, but will over time as far as overseas corporations and who they're tied into as well. And that is going to be, and Kim, F. Rory, yeah, I've taken a side in the Live debate. All right, Kim, that's your opinion. We appreciate it. I love what I've been watching on that series.
And yes, I'm sure that the PGA has some sponsors that are not pure as the driven snow as well.
A bunch of millionaires arguing about being multi-millionaires and their opportunities to become. Yeah, it's good. If you haven't watched it, watch it. All right, when we come back, John McLean, Hall of Fame columnist, with us on 365 Sports.
The future's bright. The time is now. Destiny is calling. Can you hear the sound?
This isn't just another song. This is the soundtrack of life at Baylor.
There's a spark in your heart and a fire that's in your eyes.
If you're ready to take a big step toward a bright future, tap the banner below to check out the music video for a glimpse of life at Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry, and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes, cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Welcome back to 365 Sports. It's time for our weekly segment with NFL Hall of Fame columnist John McLean. Brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943. Read John's work at GallerySports.com and SportsRadio610.com.
John McLean has been, well, I think his career now is a vacation. He's been at baseball training camp, of course, covers everything now with GallerySports.com. John, are you still in, is it Kissimmee? Where are they now? Where are the Astros? Where is that?
They're in West Palm Beach. They moved there 7 years ago from Kissimmee.
Okay.
They built them a monstrous ballpark complex they share with the Nationals. And it's weird because when you're driving up in the parking lots, you see the big ballpark in the middle, the W sign to the right, excuse me, the A to the left. Both teams have multiple fields on their side. You never know the other one's even there.
So, John, do the Astros look World Series ready again?
You know, when I was there for 10 days before I came to the Combine, they did. They only have, really, they need to decide if Chas McCormick or Jake Myers is going to play center field. I'm guessing McCormick. And who's going to be their backup catcher? You know, Justin Verlander left. Everybody knew he was going. Usually you lose a Cy Young Award winner, it's panic time. But they still have 6 proven starters, well, 5 proven, and Hunter Brown, who was outstanding when he came up in September and in the playoffs with an 0.89 ERA as a starter and a reliever. And then Lance McCullers is not going to be ready for the start of the season. So they're now down to 5 legitimate starters. And so they're loaded. But the Braves, remember last year, they were trying to become the first team since the Yankees in 2000 to repeat. And they won 102 games, but they were upset in the playoffs. So you can still have a great regular season. But, man, if you got pitching depth, and the thing the Astros got going is the best bullpen in baseball last season is back intact.
John, I wasn't planning on asking about baseball since we started off on that note. I was just talking a little while ago about the new rules. Did you get a chance to really digest much of those while you were out there and kind of see the –
Absolutely.
Yeah, what'd you think?
Well, first of all, if you didn't know the bases were bigger, 4 inches bigger all around, you wouldn't notice it. And the pitch clock is the one that is affecting hitters and pitchers. And the rule is when the pitcher gets the ball in his glove, he has 15 seconds to deliver with nobody on base and 20 if somebody's on base. The hitters have to be in the box ready to hit with 8 seconds left. And if you're Astros like Jose Altuve and Kyle Tucker, who have these routines they go through. Tucker reaches down after every pitch. He doesn't wear batting gloves. He takes dirt, he rubs it, and then he flicks something off, an imaginary thing off the end of his bat. And Altuve steps out and redoes both batting gloves. So Altuve yesterday struck out 3 times, and it's going to be an adjustment period. And the one that, like, their pitcher Luis Garcia has the rock the baby motion. He's eliminated it. He pitched today, and he pitched great. And the thing that I don't like, and I love the no shift, but the thing I don't like is the rule that you can't, if you go to first base on a pickoff attempt twice, that's it. So if you go twice, and one counts if you step off the mound. And if that happens, the pitcher can take a 20-foot lead and then just take off and steal second or third base because they want stolen bases to increase. Well, you know what? When Lou Brock and Ricky Henderson and Maury Wills were stealing 100 bases, they had the same rules. And I just saw something online today that one team got through a half inning in 2 minutes, and on the right side, they showed an at-bat last year, 2 minutes for one hitter.
Yeah, I saw that too, yeah.
It's going to make games faster, and that's good. And Hunter Brown, their great rookie pitching prospect, he said, I did this last year in the minors. He said, once you adjust to it, it's no big deal. And he said, not everybody's going to like it because not everybody likes it when they make significant changes. And people are wondering now, what other changes do they want to make?
The Astros, obviously, again, we will discuss NFL. John's been there covering them and part of his GallerySports.com. The NFL Combine, John, I know that you had been a part of many of these over the years. And how has it changed in your opinions, if at all?
Well, the first one I went to in 1987 when it was in Indianapolis for the first time. And I guess I talked my boss into coming to get draft stuff because for our draft series. And there were like 6 of us standing in the lobby of the Crown Plaza. And we had a sheet that showed players' numbers, like number 837. And when they come out, we'd see if it's somebody we want to interview. We ask them to stop. Some would, some wouldn't. NFL then gave no cooperation whatsoever. So there were 6 of us. Now there's 1,221 media people here. And I think the NFL Network has taken it to a new level. And the thing I don't like about it has nothing to do with the combine. It's all these NFL people who and ah over guys throwing passes in shorts and T-shirts with no pressures, and they should make great throws. Will Levis, quarterback from Kentucky, and Anthony Richardson from Florida, who completed 53% of his passes, but he's got the best upside of anybody. If somebody wants to take a chance, they're going to look great. They're going to look great physically. They're going to sound great, and they're going to throw great. And their stock is probably going to go up because of the combine, and then, of course, their pro days and you get private workouts. But the main thing is just so many people here now.
John, the Texans have pick 2, pick 12, and pick 33, among other picks. But you can get 3 at least 1 really premium player, maybe 2, and a third that may have a first-round grade on your board based on, how people fall because of how they sit. If Chicago does open it up and trade that first pick, would it be foolish of Houston to get involved in that, or would they only do that if they have to have, say, Bryce Young as opposed to C.J. Stroud or Will Levis?
The Texans have 11 picks, including second and 12 overall. That victory here against the Colts in the last game was the worst win in franchise history. Nobody outside of their building in RG Stadium wanted them to win that game. So now they're going to have to, if they want to move up a spot, give up something. The Bears want to get them and the Colts, who have the 4th pick, both of them desperate for quarterbacks, in a bidding war. But Nick Caserio, the GM, who talks a lot and says nothing, tried to convince us today in his media session that they might trade up, they might trade down. They may stay in a second spot and take a quarterback, or they may take a defensive player. So in other words, he didn't tell us squat. And I guarantee you he has no clue what he's going to do right now, because this is just really the second step in the process. You besides the pro days and private workouts and lunches and dinners, you can bring in 30 prospects to your facility. Can't work out, but you can get to know them. And so ideally they'll fall in love with a quarterback that the Folds don't want. It must be hard for a new coach like D'Amico Ryans, former linebacker, defense coordinator, to pass up Georgia defensive tackle Jalen Carter and Alabama edge rusher Will Anderson Jr., because they, not the quarterbacks, are the highest rated players in this draft.
John, I saw where there's some more Daniel Snyder scuttlebutt about, a loan that he took out, and also how money was being pocketed. And there's just it seems like something else constantly going on with the Commanders franchise and Daniel Snyder, and yet nothing has actually changed at the top. But you did have the note out there, I guess, yesterday about Tillman Fertitta submitting a bid for the Commanders. Your thoughts on just where we are with Washington as a franchise, Daniel Snyder and that whole saga, and what do you think about Fertitta extending a bid?
Well, Fertitta is very popular in Houston, and he wants to own an NFL team. He's never tried to hide it. He'd love to own the Texans, but they're not for sale, at least not anytime soon. And what a great situation, replacing Dan Snyder, one of the worst owners in the history of sports. So you talk about a great situation. If you're a multi-billionaire, why not give an extra billion to be so beloved? It's not like you'd be replacing, say, Tom Brady or David Smoak. You're replacing Dan Snyder. They would give you the land for a new stadium and put tax dollars into it. There would be so much excitement in one of the most storied franchises in sports history. They're trying to get Jerry Jones to broker the deal because Jones gets along with him better than any. And I think, he's trying to get it where they can't stick him. When they find an owner, they take it out of the TV money. They don't write a check. And he doesn't want these things that he's got pending on all the sexual misconduct. Be like Jerry Richardson, sell now, get out of it, and there's nothing they can do to you financially. But his ego is so big. They say he don't want to sell to Jeff Bezos because he owns the Washington Post. Wouldn't it be something if he said, yeah, Jeff, I'll sell you this franchise, but I want you to give me the Washington Post so I can start firing people.
That would be something, you're right.
Yeah.
Do you feel like Goodell has been protecting Snyder?
No, Goodell wants it gone. You can't make an owner sell. You can have owners, you have to have 3/4 majority. And I heard a year ago he was lobbying some owners that don't hate him, trying to get enough votes in case they tried to make him sell. He wants to go out on his terms. I mean, my goodness, he's going to make clear $5 or $6 billion based on what he paid for it. And guys like that who are hated by everybody, people wonder what's it like to be them. Well, they're worth billions and billions and billions. They can have IMAX theaters on their yacht, so they do have some people that like them. Maybe they pay them to like them, but they just tune everything out and live their life. And he's still relatively young. He could lead a hell of a life with all those multiple billions of dollars. And the NFL wants it done sooner rather than later.
Is part of this just about him winning? Like just being like, oh, I've won at this whatever game this is for Daniel Snyder?
Well, Paul, my God, if he sells that franchise for anywhere from Fertitta's 5.5 to the 7 he's trying to get, yeah, he won. He can slap his hands together like he's washing his hands of the team. And he grew up a diehard fan of that team. They wanted Bob McNair to buy it from Jack Kent Cook because he wanted to buy a team. And he told them no, he was holding out to get a team in Houston. And that franchise could have been a whole lot different. And I don't think anybody had any idea Snyder was going to be as bad as he is and do what's happened to that franchise. That stadium, when it opened, it was the Taj Mahal, and now it is a dump. They just let it go to, you know what? And that's why the fans are going to be dancing in the streets. They'll want to build a statue down by the Lincoln Memorial for whoever buys that franchise that gets rid of Daniel Snyder.
I shared this with Garrett, who's a lifelong Washington football from the Redskins to now the Commanders. I have about 10 or 12 T-shirts. I have a couple of other things. I don't know what they are, but hanging in my closet, and I've actually taken them all and moved them to an upstairs closet in the corner. I'm not going to wear any of them until there's an ownership change. Now, I know it sounds petty, and no one cares, but that's the way I feel about them because I'm so embarrassed by how they're run and all the things in between and how they've just been a mess for 2 decades plus.
Well, I'm pretty sure they're going to be too big for you when you decide to put them on, but you can always have them altered. My wife, Carol, grew up Silver Spring, loving the Redskins and Joe Gibbs. She, right when they talked about the name change, she went online and bought all kinds of Redskins stuff, and I don't know what she did with it, but I know it's there somewhere. And she was on the sideline last time Washington came, and she had a half shirt that was Washington Texans and a half they were Redskins. I don't think she wouldn't use Commanders. She hates Commanders. Refuses to call them a Commanders. But I know she'll be celebrating. If she could turn cartwheels at her age, she'd be turning cartwheels down the street if Snyder sells it. Because like everybody else, they hate them. And there can't be a better situation for an owner to go into. People may say Steve Ballmer and Don Sterling, but that was the Los Angeles Clippers. They were perennial losers. This is the Washington Redskins, one of the most storied franchises in sports history that's won 3 Super Bowls and had one of the greatest coaches in history, and they've gone straight down the toilet. They've gone so far they're down in the sewer system, and Dan Snyder keeps tugging them lower and lower. A lot of people wish the NFL would push up the results of the latest sexual misconduct scandal, but I think they're worried if they do that, he may just dig in even more.
John, Baylor, 2 wins last night. The men win in Stillwater, hung on at the end. The women, like out of nowhere. They have had some moments where they've blown a couple of games late at home to Oklahoma and Iowa State, and they've had some bad losses. But how about the win in Austin?
When Baylor beats the University of Texas in any sport, and especially in football, but basketball as well, it's a great day. I know so many people in Houston and around the state who would rather beat Texas than anything, even if they lost everything else. And I watched that game last night, and I'm holding my breath at the end thinking, my goodness, what are they doing? But they held on. And the women, man, I know the coaches must have been going crazy to pull that one out. And they make everybody proud when they win, but especially when you beat the Longhorns at anything.
Thank you for your time, John.
Sick 'em Bears.
John McLean, Hall of Famer, GallerySports.com, Houston 610 with us most every Tuesday in the 5 o'clock hour. We appreciate his time and knowledge. And I remember going to the Astros training camp one year in Kissimmee, and I had gone blank on that. West Palm Beach, obviously one of the great franchises right now in Major League Baseball with what they've done, including winning it all last year.
Also, one of the better cities you can be in if you have to stay there for a month.
Yeah.
I would say as far as, and I'm not knocking, Dunedin, but West Palm Beach is better, So, yeah, that's a fantastic spot.
All right, when we come back, Paul Catalina wraps up this Tuesday. His top 5 is next.
Cars priced right, both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
At
Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of health care while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of health care has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:45. Or is it 5:55? Either way, it's the Top 5.
I've got no realignment juice today when it comes to the top 5. I'm sure something else will come up. But since we're at Combine Week, I decided to start doing some NFL draft combine things. And these are the top 5 positions in the draft, deepest positions in the NFL draft. Number 5, cornerback. And when you look at this cornerback class, it is chock full, and you could get really good value all the way down the line. You know, on the picture here, you got Joey Porter Jr. and Keely Ringo, and I think is that Eli Rush or Devin Witherspoon? Who's that there, Emery? I think it's Eli Rush from South Carolina, but Christian Gonzalez, Devin Witherspoon, Cam Smith, I'm sorry, Ringo, Clark Phillips, Emmanuel Forbes, Deontay Banks, all in the top 50, depending on the rankings. And then you've got guys like Jalen Jones and
A&M.
Yeah, from A&M.
I like him.
Travius Hodges-Tomlinson, most places don't even have him in the hot top 100.
Yeah.
And that's probably only because of his size. And maybe we're a little biased, but he's the Thorpe Award winner for a reason. So he's in there. And he's going to have to find a niche in the NFL, a defense that can use him well.
Well, find a niche in the NFL. There were thoughts he has to find a niche in high school. Had to find a niche in college. He's going to find. Now, again, his size is something to discuss, but the kid can play.
Yeah.
He can play.
He can play. I'm a huge Travius fan, but he goes out there and he measures it like 5'7". I mean, that's still 5'7". You know what I mean? And I think that he was not much more than that when he got measured at whatever was a Senior Bowl or something like that. Maybe I thought I had seen a measurement for him at one of those All-Star games, but I can't recall exactly what it was. And maybe I'm misremembering. That's entirely possible. But I thought that, it was a little bit on the low side, which, I mean, you feel like the guy can play at any stage and any level, and it'll be a matter of just, finding the right fit. But I do think that is going to be to his detriment, at least as far as the getting drafted part goes.
Yeah. Also, I'm going to throw out here's a couple of diamonds here for you, especially if you're a Cowboys fan. Caillou Blue Kelly from Stanford, and Julius Brents, who you know from Kansas State. Julius Brents, Iowa transfer. He is like 6'2", I think. Caillou Blue Kelly, 6'1". Dan Quinn loves those tall corners. Cornerback is a position the Cowboys have to look at. Would not be surprised if they miss out, when they get to 26, if any of these guys like Ringo or whoever are gone, then if they wait later, maybe they can probably get one of those guys. I would not be surprised at all, especially Julius Brents, to see him be one of Dan Quinn's guys that he likes, just based on his size and what he does in coverage. Number 4 is wide receiver. I mean, yeah, you all know the big ones: Quentin Johnston, Jordan Addison, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Jalen Hyatt, Josh Downs. But Zay Flowers is a guy who I think can, in the right offense, be huge from Boston College. Marvin Mims, Cedric Tillman, Rashee Rice, Trey Palmer, I think might be the fastest guy in this entire draft from Nebraska.
He was dynamic for a bad team.
Yeah.
At the end, especially when they finally found a way to get him the ball more often. He is a dynamic and also a returner, too.
Yeah. Xavier Hutchinson in the top 100. And 3 guys I'm going to tell you to watch out for. A.T. Perry from Wake Forest, a big guy with some speed. Tank Dell from Houston is shooting up a lot of draft boards.
Should be.
People really like Tank Dell. And Jonathan Mingo from Ole Miss is someone who might be in that DK Metcalf, not as developed. I use that because they're the same school, but may fly under the radar, but he's got all the tools there at wide receiver as well. And so if you're an Ole Miss fan, you probably know what I'm talking about with Jonathan Mingo. And a team that didn't throw all that much last year, so that might have been hurting his stock a little bit as well. And look, in the top 150 is Charlie Jones from Purdue, who, if you watch Purdue at all, was fantastic all year long.
I don't know if he's going to end up, and I don't say this, but I don't know if he's going to end up as a slot receiver. All I remember is watching Purdue a couple of times, and all he does is make catches. And it's not because, they're throwing the ball 80 times a game. Braum was the coach, is that right?
Yeah, Aiden O'Connell, the quarterback.
But yeah. I'm telling you, I really like his toughness. That's a young man that I hope, and he gets an opportunity and maybe ends up playing for a long time.
Yeah. Number 3. Running back. And see, this is where it gets complicated. Craig, you asked about Bijan Robinson with Hellman yesterday. Bijan Robinson is someone who probably will fall outside this norm if teams don't value it. But if you think about it, if you can get out of Bijan Robinson and you're the right team, what the Cowboys got out of Zeke Elliott until this last year and a half, then it's worth it for one contract. You don't have to sign him to another contract, but the team, I think, with Bijan Robinson that would not shock me, because Miles Sanders is a free agent and they have the 10th pick, is the Eagles. Put Bijan Robinson on the Eagles right now with a couple of their other running backs who know the system, and tell me that's not going to be fantastic. I mean, so he makes a lot of sense to me. But you also have guys like Jahmyr Gibbs, who I think very much is a modern NFL back. Devin Achane, who I think, even though he's a little bit smaller, can do a lot of different things and be in the right offense. Zach Charbonnet, Tank Bigsby, Israel Ibanaconda is probably a 3rd or 4th round guy. He's out of Pittsburgh. This is a dude who multiple times in his career rushed for 300 yards in a game.
He put up some numbers. Yeah.
Kendry Miller's in that list.
Did you? And I'm sorry, but did you mention who's the guy from Minnesota?
Muhammad Ibrahim.
And I don't know his status.
He'll be way down. He'll be like a 6th round guy.
A grinder.
I like him. Deuce Vaughn is in this as well. I think Deuce Vaughn can be a great late pickup. And the other one I really do like, I like Chase Brown, and I like Kenny McIntosh from Georgia.
Okay.
Fits in like the Chiefs kind of offense thing.
So. Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see where Bijan goes, and it's a lot of names out there at the running back spot.
Yeah. Number 2, defensive end, and this one, the best player in the draft is probably Will Anderson, number 1. But Miles Murphy from Clemson, Tyree Wilson at Texas Tech, I think they're all 3 going to go in the top 10. Foskey from Notre Dame. But you get really down into, kind of the mean potatoes in the middle rounds, Andre Carter, Derek Hall from Auburn, Keon White, Georgia Tech, Nolan Smith at Georgia. There's a lot of dudes who can get to the quarterback in this draft, and there's a lot of value at that position. Will McDonald also from Iowa State.
I'll tell you what, Tyree Wilson comes from West Rusk High School in a little town, New London, Texas, basically, right outside of Henderson, and was a compiler of stats. And I remember when he was being recruited, he has turned out, and he was just really good at Texas Tech. I wish the best for him. Young man's really good guy. I talked to him on the phone after their season ended for a little bit. Wish him the best of luck.
Started with A&M.
Man.
Signed with A&M.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I did not know
Started with them and then went to the transfer portal and landed at Tech. But, yeah, he's going to be a top probably 10-ish, 15-ish at worst, I would think, type of guy based on what I've seen so far, and haven't got heavy into the draft stuff. But, I mean, going back to the Bijan thing, I've seen a lot of that Eagles stuff too, and I think a lot of that's wishful thinking right now. I think a ton of that is just that's the sexy pick to make. It's like Cowboys fans of like, do we need a running back? No, but what would the most fun pick be? It'd be Bijan Robinson. That would be the most fun pick. But, yeah, I don't know that Bijan goes that high, but shoot, man, I mean, it might be too much to pass up if he'll be sitting there at 12, you would think, but that would be nasty. Him and Jalen Hurts together in a backfield would be something else. But yeah,
and the Eagles are very practical too. I mean,
Well, we talked about this. They have 3 running backs, and Sanders was a highly thought of guy. But they had 3 running backs. They had a 3-headed monster. All of them had perfect roles, and they did them well. Whether it was Boston Scott, or
Kenny
you had
Gainwell,
Gainwell. I mean, he was fantastic whenever he had the chance. And maybe they just stay that way.
Oh yeah, and look, they're gonna. Miles Sanders is a free agent. They're gonna let him walk. Yeah. So that's why I think that's a possibility. And number 1, and I don't know if this has ever maybe been the case in any draft ever, but there are tight ends, and I do think this is sometimes, the NFL starts a trend that then like falls down to college football. And I don't know how long this is gonna last, but the Gronk, Travis Kelce tight ends of the world were. Coaches clearly saw what those guys were doing and then said, well, hey, we probably got a guy we can teach to do this. And then you've got Michael Mayer of Notre Dame. Darnell Washington at Georgia is 6'7", and maybe not.
Not even the best tight end.
Not even the best tight end.
Who knows about the pros?
Yeah, he's a pretty good straight line runner, but in the NFL, they're not going to ask Darnell Washington to do much but get first downs and score in the red zone. So a team that needs to score in the red zone should probably consider him. Luke Musgrave at Oregon State is a guy who's flies under the radar because he's at Oregon State, but he can burn at 255 pounds. Dalton Kincaid at Utah is essentially a wide receiver playing tight end, and I think he'll be great. Plus, Cameron Latu at Alabama, Sam Laporta at Iowa. There's a lot of it, and a guy late you need to watch out for is Will Mallory at Miami. Super athletic. Would have probably really fit the mold of those, Jeremy Shockey, Kellen Winslow, Miami tight ends back in the day. Wrong place, wrong time for him at Miami right now with the way that their offense is moving. But a better quarterback, and this is a guy who's probably rated above, the 150 level in most people's charts. But this is a deep draft that you can find value almost in every round at tight end. So if you're a team that needs one, and there are several that do, the Cowboys may be even among them. But the Ravens have done well finding tight ends. They don't need one, but the Bills could use one. Good teams need a good tight end.
But all of them, he's a good player. The guy from Notre Dame, that's a monstrous player. Where would Bowers come out if he came out, if he was
he would be above all of them because he can just do so many things. He's so unique.
Yeah. All right, Paul, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Emery Winter, Jack McKenzie, and Garrett Ross, we appreciate you. Thanks to the chat room. Just went in there to say goodnight to everybody and appreciate the time you give us. The text line, Paxton, with a compliment about the fact that outlets are crediting us with our interviews and segments and quotes and all that. We appreciate that. Thanks for what you said on the chat room and in the text line department, too. For our great sponsors every day. A new month starts tomorrow here on 365 Sports. For Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak, we appreciate you every day. Good night, 365 Sports.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of health.